PL 1975, Chapter 231. The notice requirements have been satisfied. The meeting dates of the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center, and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Omar, can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Corsair. Councilmember Dayton.
Here.
Councilmember Michaels.
Present.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor.
Here.
Councilmember Park.
Here.
Councilmember Roller. Mayor Zimmerman.
Here. Okay, first item on the agenda is Tenafly Nature Center. Deborah, come on up to the microphone, please. You what? All right, so just gently tell us.
Deborah Davidson, the Executive Director at the Tenafly Nature Center.
And I think we talked with, you were going to do a summary, and then we're going to, is that what you want to do, right? And then Q&A with the council? Whatever you want to do. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Tenafly Nature Center is proud to serve as steward to nearly 400 acres of borough preserved land, a unique and irreplaceable natural asset in the heart of Tenafly. This land is more than just open space. It is a living classroom, a sanctuary for wildlife, and a vital green resource for the entire community. The center was established in 1961 through a visionary partnership with the borough, which recognized the need to protect land not only for conservation, but for education and public enrichment. Conceived as a blend of a youth museum, nature park, and wildlife refuge, the Tenafly Nature Center has become a cornerstone of environmental stewardship, passive recreation, and civic pride. Thanks to the borough's continued support, and in just the past 5 years, the Nature Center has achieved several major milestones: updating all trail and interpretive signage, enhancing visitor engagement and education, maintaining and improving trail safety, including the removal of fallen trees, bridge repairs, keeping the grounds clean and accessible year-round, including during the 2020 pandemic. Completed habitat restoration projects, earning recognition from state foresters who now rank our forest among one of the healthiest in New Jersey. Constructing the new aviary, pavilion, fencing that surrounds all of that, expanding our capacity to care for wildlife and to host public programs. These accomplishments reflect just part of what the Nature Center offers. Beyond the visible improvements, the Nature Center delivers deep and lasting impact through hosting thousands of school children and families for environmental education programs, supporting local biodiversity by protecting native plant and animal habitats, offering a peaceful refuge for residents seeking connection with nature. The ecological significance of this space cannot be overstated. These 400 acres help filter groundwater, absorb carbon, buffer storm impacts, and provide critical habitat for native species. But beyond the science, they offer something equally essential: a sense of place, identity, and well-being for the people of Tenafly. This is where residents go to walk, reflect, learn, and connect with nature and with one another. This land was set aside with purpose to be protected in perpetuity as a preserve of land and water, a space large enough for nature to sustain itself. That original vision is only achievable through continued care and investment. To maintain this legacy, Tenafly Nature Center respectfully requests an annual contribution of $65,000 from the borough's Open Space Fund. This funding will support ongoing maintenance, habitat protection, educational programming, which we actually cover through all of our fees, and the environmental resilience, all essential to fulfilling the borough's original intention for this land. The Nature Center is not just green space, it is a representation of Tenafly's values. Your continued support demonstrates to residents and the region that this borough leads with foresight, values balance, and a commitment to protecting what makes Tenafly unique. We look forward to continuing our strong partnership with the borough and invite you to help us ensure this land remains wild, resilient, and welcoming for generations to come.
Thank you. I would ask the first question. Just find out the accessible trails
Yes.
with the grant. What's timing on that in terms of when you hear about it, that sort of thing? Just generally speaking.
We submitted for federal funding.
Right.
And we heard from Booker's office, who had questions. The actual timing of that is probably not for quite some time, because we're waiting for them to go through their process.
So probably not this year, or
Probably not this year,
not
probably
this
next year.
Right.
In the meantime, we are still pursuing other grants and other opportunities to help us fund some of the portions of the project.
For the accessible trail.
Correct.
Question? Yes, Lauren, go ahead, please.
So I have had the honor of being the liaison to the Nature Center for a very long time. And I want to ask Deb a couple questions so that the rest of my council has the same knowledge. First of all, if you wouldn't mind discussing, and it's been an enormous change and breath of fresh air, the roles of Jenica and Helene on your board.
Absolutely. About 5 years ago, we started the process of being able to hire individuals just focused on development for the Nature Center. Prior to that, we didn't have anybody who was solely responsible for that except for the executive director, which is hard to balance that with everything else. So Jenica and Helene were two individuals who were hired. One is our grant writer and has worked to help bringing in grants and reaching out and finding other grants that we could potentially apply for. And Jenica is working on collaborating with corporations and other larger businesses and bringing in funding that way, partnering and finding ways that they can help support the Nature Center as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mind if I could just continue? So I actually, you guys don't know, I sit on the development committee, which I see members of my development committee here. No, but specifically within the Nature Center, I'm not the liaison this year, but I am and have stayed on the development committee, whose sole purpose is to fundraise, build relationships with corporations and sponsorships. And I just want to ask Deb to give us, a couple of examples of things that are now ongoing corporate relationships that have been built by the board and by these efforts.
Absolutely. We've had several returning corporations that have come back, places like the Garden State Plaza Mall, Samsung, AKA Sorority. We made connection with LG this year, and we're working on having them come for a day up at the Nature Center. A lot of these partnerships are formed by them also then coming and doing days of service, their staff, and through that we're able to tie in other partnerships with them.
And I also want to ask about the ability to have our board fundraised by individual donors, which on all the boards I've sat on this year has significantly declined.
Absolutely, yes. So our board does what they can in terms of being able to reach out to individual donors. A lot of those then are shared with our development team, and they then kind of continue to nurture and maintain those relationships so that we can continue to develop other ways that are bringing in funding to the Nature Center that does not pertain to programming or just general asks, but more targeted.
I have a question about the corporate sponsors. How do you go about obtaining them?
We ask. We reach out to them, like I said, forming partnerships.
You gotta be impressed with how succinct is our strategy.
Okay,
Yeah.
next question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's part of some of the things that we do. So actually, one of the really amazing things we focus on this year is wellness and socialism and not isolation. So we don't-
Socialism, maybe there's a better.
Socialization.
Thank you. Excuse me.
No,
Excuse me. So we said this year, we want to focus on bringing our seniors in. We want to focus on bringing in, we brought in the Graph Center for Wellness Days, which makes a relationship with Echo Hospital right here locally. We wanted to focus on health and wellness for even just our residents, and we have this incredible yoga expert, Dahlia Sabari, now leading walks and possibly yoga up at the Nature Center. So the relationships that we're building are actually well thought out. We also recognize who's close by and who could utilize our Nature Center. So not only do we want Samsung to come for Wellness Days, we want their employees to come for a lunch walk. We want their employees to become our members. And so we are building levels of relationships with the surrounding companies here in Bergen.
And I'll just add one thing real quickly. Also, it then encourages them and their families also to come and partake. So you have a lot of individuals who work not too far from the nature center. By introducing ourselves to those corporations, they understand what kind of a resource is nearby, so they have now a space that they can send their kids for camp or other programming, making it a little bit easier for them on their commute on a daily basis.
So this is a huge effort that has been spearheaded by our director, and is focused by our development committee. We have other members here who can talk about it. But the Nature Center isn't just relying on the borough for funding. They are, putting feet to the ground here and trying to think out of the box on other funding sources. We've applied to our congressmen, our state assembly, our legislators, our county, those are the easy ones, we know those. Then we have also now created this entire development group focused on corporations, business relationships, ongoing relationships. They're funding some of our nature dinner, they're sponsoring our events, they're putting advertisements in, they're donating something for silent auction. And that little relationship opens the door to a continued relationship and ongoing support. However, as Deborah has asked, an open space fund request is completely appropriate from our nature center. We collect our residents' money for the purpose of preserving open space. Our nature center is 400 acres of incredible open space for that purpose. And I understand that maybe some of us want it to be a more active site, but that is not the intention of this nature center. And I understand some of us don't utilize it, but so many of our residents do. And as a council, we represent those residents.
Do you know what the percentage of the residents, I'm just curious, do you know what percentage of the residents use the nature center or member?
Don't go that. How many times has the fire truck killed to your house? You still pay for the fire
No,
truck.
I was just curious, I'm just
So-
curious, I'm just
No, let
curious.
Deborah answer the
I
question.
can say that Tenafly is the largest number that we have from one town. It's hard to calculate that because you have people coming multiple times. So there are individuals I can tell you every day that are walking up that hill and walking those trails. Every single day I see some people going back and forth. We get a chance to meet several of those residents on a daily basis.
Just a quick thing that Jamie's question.
Go ahead, Julie.
The other day at the Spring Fling, the mayor and I were at a table, and Suzanne, one of your new board members, had said that she's a statistics, she's very well versed in statistics. She's a professor in CUNY, and she's going to be taking your data and compiling it, so we might be able to answer Jamie's
Yeah.
question. Is that forthcoming, right?
Correct. We're working on, I've been creating reports for 20 years.
Yeah.
And all that data, it's just now trying to fine tune it.
Right.
But once again, it's very hard to say a full percentage when you have some people that are using it multiple times.
Yeah, no, I just
They're
want
not
to
being-
maximize, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a community resource, I just want to make sure. we're
Absolutely.
maximizing.
I also just want to note that there was a time when Nature Center was trying to collect through QR codes, donations, or even just a trail fee for people that can utilize it. Otherwise, but the state disallowed that, and now it can only be donations, so you may not be capturing everybody that's actually.
100%.
Members.
Right, if they're not a member, and you don't have to be a member to utilize it.
What is the total size of your annual budget?
1 million, I think it's 1.1 million this year.
And how much of that, obviously, you're saying 1.035 of that roughly is offset by donations and other
Yes.
contributions?
Yes.
And
Programming.
And programming, John.
you just answered the question, there's no fee for anybody to join the Nature Center or walk the trails?
To walk the trails, you are welcome to walk them. We do ask for a donation, but it's not a requirement.
And is there, maybe you can answer the question, because I'm not particularly right. Why is there an abject prohibition? I would use it, I've lived here since 1971. I skated at the Nature Center. I have great appreciation for the Nature Center. I will never go to the Nature Center again until I can bring my dog to the Nature Center. Because we go for a walk with a dog, and we might end up there, and I will live over there and go for a walk in the woods. But being turned away several times is a very disturbing and discouraging factor. Why is there such an abrupt rule on 450 acres to not permit a portion of that to be more community friendly, increase utilization rate, and do that? I simply don't understand.
So first of all, it's less than 400 acres, just to clarify.
Right, 380?
It's like 380 something,
Okay.
and 65 of those acres are not even part of our lease, but we still take care of it and manage it.
It's part of your freedom that you included this one. I'm only reflecting the.
I said
provided.
nearly 400. Yeah. So
It's a
I
lot.
don't,
It's a lot.
it's quite a
It's a
few,
lot.
quite a few acres, absolutely. So historically, and the main reason why dogs are typically not allowed at many nature preserves is because their presence will actually, and studies have shown this, will actually cause a disturbance to the local wildlife and the fauna, that it just disappears. It won't be there anymore. It goes away. Between fecal matter, between potential diseases, we actually have an entire brochure that was created based on a lot of these studies that we gathered. And in my research, the majority of nature preserves in the area do not allow dogs, including the national parks. So,
Is there a willingness to discuss the portion, understood you don't want to disrupt the entire ecosystem, I respect that. Is there a willingness to discuss the portion? And 20 acres, you know, if it's a small allocation where that could be something that we could work on, that would really increase the area.
there is an area of property, which I mentioned last year, that is not on our lease. It's 14.8 acres, and we would be happy.
That's not safe.
Correct,
That's not.
but it currently is an area that we have a trail on, so we would be happy to recreate a dog-friendly trail within that 14.8 acres that would be beneficial. It's also easier to access because it's on the outside of the preserve, whereas a lot of the area that we have is covered in wetlands as well. And so the trails where they are located are based on working with the land so that people aren't trudging through heavily rained areas.
Dogs could go there right now.
Can
I
I,
understand, but answer my question.
Yeah, but as soon as he's-
Right now, I mean, listen, we're happy to have conversations. The answer of bringing it right through the main area of the nature center is probably not the best place for them. Between that and between all the children that are around there who aren't necessarily happy with dogs always. But there are other areas that possibly could be looked into.
And my last point, I appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
And-
can I actually say something to the dog question? Sure. Unless you're switching back.
Sure.
Okay. I just also want to say, this has been discussed numerous times that I've been liaison to this board. There is a large board, it's usually more than 15 people, 13 to 15 people, and this has been brought up for many times. And the board, which are stewards of our land, they have good, robust debate on dogs in the area. And it has yet to pass because the majority of the board, as conservation and environmental issues, they need to respect that over the idea. And by the way, Tenafly just spent an incredible amount of money to make a dog park, a dedicated area to a dog park.
But it's separate. It's not the same thing.
Okay, you can argue with me, but also, there is a board, it has discussed this, with professionals on the board who are environmental and land preservers, and it has been voted down every time consistently. So it is not just the director having this conversation, I just want to make that very clear,
I will,
that our residents are members of this board and have heard these discussions and have voted it down.
I just like I represent, and we represent the community, so we have to also think about that.
I,
Not
One
like the council.
more point, one more question.
And I very much appreciate your patience with and appreciate your calls. Council President Michael this year, I think very wisely asked all of our departments to do a bottom-up budget instead of a, this is what we did last year. In your opinion, and this is not a question of maybe that shall cut, I'm just curious, when is the last time there was a review of that, budget in terms of, are there places that we could save money in this? And again, I'm not, first of all, to create space allocation of these things. I think it's just an important part of our community. I'm just trying to see as we are subject to increases in budgets and increases in healthcare premiums and insurance premiums and everything else, it's a responsibility to ask people on a budget basis. And we've gone through that process this year. And is it something that, we've had an opportunity to review recently?
As the Nature Center is a 100% nonprofit, we do this every year because we have to keep everything from the pens that we purchase to the markers to the Band-Aids and the ice packs and stuff. Every dollar is counted. And every time we have a way to trim back, to make things cheaper or to figure out better ways to save, we absolutely do it. This has meant that staff has been adjusted based on that. Every year we do this. Every year when we're creating our budget, we look at our true expenses and we compare it, not just with the prior year, but with the last several years, so that we can ensure that what we're doing is getting the best. And we also reach out to see if we're getting the best deals, because just like you and what you guys are doing, we also deal with insurance premiums and increases in phone, internet, everything on an annual basis. Of course.
Other questions? Okay, so unless the council disagrees, there's probably several people who would like to make comments on this topic. I think we do that now rather than wait for public comment.
Sure. Yes.
Right? So do you want to add anything else, or are you good?
If you have any questions, I'm always happy to have conversations. And I'm always also happy to meet and walk around and show you where we are taking the funds.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you very much. All right, if any members of the public would like to comment about this topic only, please come up to the microphone. That are in the chambers.
Topic being open space.
The topic is the nature center, of course.
No, but I mean the $65,000.
Yeah, anything about the nature center, someone wants to ask, money, whatever, they're welcome to do so. You have to give us your name, Bernie, but don't give us your address. No, apparently the law's changed. You can't give us your address anymore.
Unless you want to say.
That's the way on that in terms of salt.
Such a weird opening. Don't tell us.
Okay, don't, all right,
You
okay.
don't want to have to redact anyone who would fall under Gary's.
Right.
Oh.
Just your name.
Some of you know that I'm not a great fan of the great outdoors. As far as I'm concerned, the creepy crawly things, the flying things, they stay on their side of town, and I stay on my side of town. But that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the knowledge that there's a place near me that offers a respite for manicured lawns and carefully pruned trees, a place where someone can wander down a trail and see an incredible variety of plant and animal life, a place where our children could go to learn about the other inhabitants of our planet. The Nature Center Conservatory was created by the residents of Tenafly to celebrate the wonders of the earth. It's up to us to preserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Hi, John. How you doing tonight? Just give us your name.
John Holmes, live in Tenafly, since 1967. And the Nature Center's been part of our lives in Tenafly for many, many years. And we became members right after we moved to Tenafly. And we stayed members for all these years. Our kids were avid users of the Tenafly Nature Center when they grew up. And their kids, we hope, will also become users when we hope they move back to Tenafly. But Tenafly is a very diverse community, and one of the benefits that we get out of the Nature Center is that it serves all of the residents of Tenafly. And unlike many of the activities that fall into niches, the Nature Center is open to all of our residents, and all of our residents can enjoy the Nature Center. And I appreciate the problem that you mentioned earlier. But with that exception, they all can use the Nature Center. I've been associated with the Nature Center membership executive for a number of years. When I was councilman, I was the liaison to the Nature Center for 9 years. And after that, I was on the board of the Nature Center for, I think, about 6 years, something like that. I think that a survey was conducted a number of years ago, and it asked for what was the most important features of Tenafly that made living in Tenafly special. And by a large majority, the respondents indicated that the Nature Center was that agency. That was not sponsored by the Nature Center, but it was, and it did support the Nature Center. I believe that Nature Center is one of the places that separate Tenafly from other communities that we feel we compete with. And as such, the Nature Center, the the features of the Nature Center really separate us from other communities. And in all of these things, it's true that we use volunteers and donors to support the Nature Center, but it's very important also that the municipality supports the Nature Center. That if you're looking at the Nature Center, you can say, well, not only is this a private enterprise by citizens of Tenafly, but that the borough also fully supports it. We supported it when I was on the council, and I'm surprised and disappointed to hear that this is being challenged in the current year. I strongly urge you to continue to support the Nature Center and to be as generous as you can. As the director pointed out, inflation has caused the need for money to increase each year, and I think we can say with confidence that inflation is not going to go down significantly over the next few years. So we really appreciate any support that you can give to the Nature Center, and hopefully on a recurring and increasing basis. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hi, my name is Hyuk Lee. I'm a resident and also a member of the Tenafly Nature Center. So I have a couple of items here that I just quickly jotted down just to answer the question that was earlier, not necessarily directly talking about the percentage of folks, but we do get roughly 50,000 visitors to the Nature Center annually. Plus, we get about 28,000 people via programming. That's both students and adults that come in. So, you know, again, there might be some people obviously coming multiple times, 78,000. You know, we're a town of 14,000 folks. So, you know, there's a lot of, repeat visitation. People utilize it. It's not being disused or going ignored. So we do need to maintain, and we need to make sure that we have fresh programming. We need to make sure that we are having safety as well, because obviously this is borough property. We don't want anyone suing us. So that's there. And then the other thing is just a reminder that I think I spoke about this last time. I was told that the Nature Center is about a quarter of all of the town's land, and that, you know, I don't think 65,000 is actually a quarter of the DPW Parks budget. So we're not asking disproportionate amounts or anything out of the ordinary. And also, you know, we're not asking, yes, we ask for a donation when people come in. We ask for memberships. We do all these other activities for the corporate sponsors. And then when they get, acquainted with the Nature Center, we do ask them to become members. We do have drives. We do ask them for donations. Even, Westfield Mall, Guard State Plaza, not only do they do a Nature Day here, but some of the folks became members. And then also we do ask for, they do donate money to help us with our programming, right? So, I don't think that we're asking people who visit Roosevelt Commons, to pay a donation, or we don't ask them to say, hey, by the way, we don't ask them to justify the Roosevelt Commons budget. We don't say, hey, if you're going to come in and walk through it, you have to pay money, or you have to, justify yourself. So I don't think it's something out of the ordinary that we're doing here. And in terms of dogs, I'm a dog lover. I have a dog. We have many areas to walk our dog. And as Councilwoman Dayton said, we do have a dog park. We have streets. We have county parks, which allow dogs. We have many, many places to walk dogs. So like dog walking areas are not lacking, whether it's streets or parks or wooded areas, it's not lacking. We could drive to New York State and walk the dogs, or we could do it locally. My dog is very happy. There are very few pristine areas, very few areas that have just nature. We have almost 400 acres, 300 and whatever, 88 or whatever it was. And we have one preserve here that's a big asset to the town, even for all the real estate folks, right? We sell based on that. Hey, by the way, this is the only area where we have this. It's quiet, we live so close to the city, and yet we have this gem, this beauty. And it is, most of the Nature Center is actually not the Nature Center, right? As you guys know, it's town land, and it's called the Lost Book Preserve. We're supposed to preserve it. We have a duty to preserve it, to make sure that it stays forevermore, a place that, we're not going to build, these huge, kind of areas where we're just going to have amusement. We have plenty of those, right? We could go into the city for theater, restaurants. We have parks that has that if we want, carousels and things like that. We have Van Stone Park. They're all available to us, but where can we go in Bergen County that's going to be a true area for nature where we're going to be able to go bird watching without having the scent of dogs or fecal matter scaring these things, right? And where do we get to see foxes? And when do you get to see all these things that we could actually start teaching our kids about, nature? And, the one great thing, kind of crazy thing that I heard was I think it was one of the campers, and it was the first time one of these kids actually touched dirt. And where are you going to learn that? That is the weirdest thing, right? But it's incredible. They have, front yards, but they're just, they live in suburbs and they're just going from, their house to cars and, Purell and everything else. But this is an area where we have, again, a revenue driver with our camps, right? And learning and even, being able to show the owls. So this is a really good resource that we have here, guys. And we're all volunteers, we're picking up the clipboard because we can and because we want to. So please help us preserve this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to point out, there's
Peter,
nothing wrong
please
with
come
this
up.
side of the room, by the way. There's not a problem over there. I've never seen this before.
Everyone just comes in, just sits down.
Comments about the dogs. My dogs spend a lot of time here at Borough Hall. I find it ironic that they've never been in the nature center. But, I'm a dog person. I totally understand why the dogs aren't there. And if you need a visual reason, when you drive up East Clinton past my house, there's a big fenced-in area that's a dog area. I want you to compare the grass in that area to the rest of the lawn. I don't understand. I think why dogs, I would like to think that all dog owners understand. I walk Woodland Street every day, and I pass at least 4 properties. The signs basically say, in other words, keep your dogs off my lawn. Well, I moved to Tenafly 4 years too late. In 1976, a group of forward-thinking neighbors and public-serving organizations partnered with Tenafly to purchase land on the East Hill that became the Lost Brook Preserve. Remember that word, preserve. It's not park. Had I moved a few years earlier, I would have the privilege and the honor to be part of that special group that saved almost 400 acres from practically doubling the population of Tenafly at that time. Living where I do on East Clinton Avenue, my family and I are beneficiaries of clean air and all sorts of critters that might not be here today had greed and short-sightedness carried the day back then. As I understand it, there are 2 issues that are challenging our mayor and council in regards to the Tenafly Nature Center and the land they steward. First and easiest is the financial question. The question is, do you allot to the Nature Center the amount of money they are asking for? This truly is a no-brainer, because nowhere else in your budget are you getting such a bang for your buck. They steward almost 400 acres, practically a quarter of our town's area, and it costs taxpayers $65,000. It doesn't take an accountant to recognize that this is money well spent. There is no need to place restrictions on this allocation. The Nature Center volunteers have proven over the years that they are worthy of this mission. Yes, the main building is not what we would like it to be, and it's not their fault. Some years ago, a group of residents, by no means the majority of the town, convinced the town that it was not in our interest to have a new Nature Center building built using no tax dollars. In my 16 years as mayor, this was my biggest disappointment and the town's biggest mistake. We need to give our volunteers the tools and the money to do the job properly. Do not be part of a governing body that, pardon the expression, doesn't see the forest from the trees. The second issue may be a bit harder to grasp. The land we are discussing tonight is a preserve, not a park, nor was it ever meant to be a park. Real estate developers tried to convince Tenafly that it would be well served if the land was developed. Don't fall for those same arguments that are continually used. More parks will raise property values. Our kids and dogs need more parks and activities. Tenafly has many parks. Excuse me. And so do all the surrounding towns. What Tenafly has that other towns don't have is 400 acres of unspoiled woods, treasured by every environmental group that visits it. How many of you have actually taken a tour of the preserve? Let one of the stewards explain what their mission is and what it means to them and what it means to our community. Please don't be the governing body that fails to recognize that treasure. Our kids and families have plenty of parks to utilize. They have only one preserve. Once it's gone, we'll remember it as I do, when I think of the new Nature Center building we could have had. This is your chance and your responsibility to keep this unique land, not only for your children, but for your grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Who else would like to speak from inside the chambers here? Anyone? Andrew, come up to the microphone. Yep, there's people online. We'll get to that next. Just tell us your name, Andrew.
Andrew Mikesh, yes, I'm also the board of the Tenafly Nature Center. I'm going to try to pull this together completely out of memory and based on what I've heard so far. I'm also a dog lover, and some of you have met my yellow lab. He's amazing and friendly, and it took me a long time to realize the challenges. And I don't want to hype on that. Just the concept of dogs being around, naturally marking everything as their territory, lingers for a long time after they leave, and animals try to avoid areas where natural predators scent exist. That is apparently, I'm told, and again, I'm not a biologist, a natural phenomenon, and once it happens, they're not going to come back. So that's part of it. I think that we're trying to listen to you guys. I understand that there is a lot of interest where you guys are trying to help us. We need to adapt, we need to move forward. A number of us on the board, I think, are very much interested in working, moving forward. To be fair, I think the dog thing seems to be a recurring theme. I think the road course is now under control. With a board member engaged, you guys are engaged. So hopefully that shows you that we are trying to listen and we are getting engaged and moving forward. This dog thing keeps popping up. And so first of all, I think we did come up with a solution. It may not be the exact solution that some people envision, but it was an opening to open a dialogue. There is a possibility. There was something that I believe Deborah mentioned as a potential. Is that the exact answer or not? Who knows? But I would also ask that you don't be biased by one item out of a long list of potential new ideas, recreational opportunities we are working on. Don't have one specific item kind of impact your overall judgment of the long-term relationship. It is a municipal treasure that was originally founded with some very specific direction that's well documented. We are trying to balance that with tradition versus new needs. The society is evolving, community, but you also need to maintain, because once it's changed, it's almost impossible to put it back. So that's why you may find us a little bit hesitant at times or trying to really consider everything. But we are interested in, we hear you, and hopefully we can move forward like we've not done before. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anyone else from the chambers want to make a comment on this before we go online? Okay, Omar, is there anyone online with their hand up I don't know who was first?
Dahlia Sabari was first.
Dahlia?
Yes, hello. My name is Dahlia Sabari. I'm a resident of Tenafly and a new member of the board at the Nature Center. I moved here with my family in 2020 from New York City. The Nature Center was a major pull for us. It brought us to this neighborhood and even led us to buy a home just a few blocks away. My family and I are members of the Nature Center and avid users of the Nature Center. My children have attended the camps. We've held birthday parties there. and I feel very lucky to now be on the board. I'm here really today to speak to the amazing connection the Nature Center provides us in increasing our wellness, both physically and mentally. As a member of the development committee, I have been working on guided hikes, bringing members of our community up to the Nature Center to learn about it. And most importantly, just to keep it short, I have watched the board, Deb, and the employees of the Nature Center over the last few months, and I have deep and incredible trust in them. They want to keep the Nature Center valid and moving forward, but also maintaining the preserve and its beauty and all that it really offers our residents. They've done an incredible job at preserving and maintaining this very special place, and I just wanted to really speak in support of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Omar, who's next?
Can I actually say something before we move on?
Pardon me?
Can I just say one thing before we move on about
Sure.
something that Mr. Barr said? We talk a lot about mental health, and I've been talking a lot about mental health on this table. And I will tell you, our nature center and actually Lost Grove Preserve, they're actually bringing in people for mental health reasons, doing guided walks with psychiatrists and therapists, and something that we're looking into. The YMCA is actually spearheading some of these programs, and they have been enormously successful. And they do find walking in nature has an enormous impact on mental health. So I can't stress enough, and these guided walks are just an incredible thing that we're adding, but to preserve that quiet would be very disturbed by dogs, so we'll say that.
Okay, thank you. Omar, who's next? Is it So Young?
So Young Pack.
So Young, how you doing this evening?
Hi there, how are you?
Good.
Do I have to give my address or anything like that?
No address.
Fine.
Mary gets very upset.
Okay. All right. My name is So Young Pack, and I live at 10 Laurel Avenue in Tenafly. And I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Everyone in here is going to lower their voice so we can hear you.
Okay. So I just called in to say that I think that the town should continue to support the Tenafly Nature Center, and support it with an open heart and with full enthusiasm. Like Dahlia, who called in before me, the Tenafly Nature Center is one of the reasons why we decided to move in here. And in the 12 years that we've been in Tenafly, we have enjoyed it individually, as adults. My children have enjoyed it across all ages, from the time that they were preschoolers in the camp to teens, just taking walks there with their friends. It is the closest thing to a community center that Tenafly has. It's a place where my whole family can go to after lunch and take a walk and enjoy each other away from digital screens. And it is just a calming place, a beautiful place, a place that invites togetherness. It is also an active space. It houses a camp that is not only open during the summer, but it is open during school breaks, which is so important to working parents. And it is a camp that encourages interaction with nature, with animals. As a resident of Tenafly, the animal life that it brings to Tenafly, I think, is amazing. It's because of the Nature Center that we get to enjoy. I know some people don't like it, but the turkeys, the vultures, the coyotes, the occasional skunk, the richness of the animal life is such a joy for our children to experience. The ability to have some place for teenagers to go, where they can just chat and be with their friends and be away from their screens and be themselves. It is so important. The value and the richness I think it brings to the community, the people who live here, it is immeasurable. Again, it is a space for the community. It is an active space that children can enjoy, that adults can enjoy, that families can enjoy, unlike some of the other places in Tenafly, like David Johnson's Park, which is beautiful and lovely, and it's a nice addition to the community. It's a beautiful park, but it is not the same thing. It is very, very passive. You might have some events there. This is something that really brings people. Friends walk there together. It's a place that draws potential home buyers. It adds value to our properties because we know that this is here for our families to enjoy. And I think it would be such a loss if the Tenafly Nature Center had to cut resources, cut activities, or just depend on volunteer work only, because we know that it is already hard to get volunteers to work there. It is something that we should celebrate and continue to support wholeheartedly with our budgets, because we pay with our taxes for City Hall, and we are City Hall, and the Tenafly Nature Center is something that benefits everybody who lives here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, So-Young. Is there anyone else online on Zoom who would like to speak? Okay, is there anyone else in the chamber who hasn't spoken that would like to speak? Okay, so we'll close the public comment on this. So the process is this will go through 2 readings. We're going to have our first reading at the next council meeting on May 20th. Okay, and then the public hearing will be subsequently. What's the council meeting after May 20th? June 3rd. So whoever would like to come on May 20th, you're certainly welcome to join in. But that's when we'll do the first reading.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to poll the council.
I think we'd rather wait till the first meeting.
I'd like to poll the council today, so I
I'm
know.
not sure if we want to do that tonight.
Well, that's a council decision.
I think it's in the process.
Actually, it's a council power.
So
to poll the
do
council.
the council members want to do that or not? What?
That's an official vote, but
Yeah,
so that the
that's-
Nature Center board
It
can
doesn't
see.
sound like you have the support for it though.
Yes,
Polling
but-
it.
I'm not. So the Nature Center board can see
Right.
where their efforts need to go, maybe for education, visits up to the nature center. I think it would be a useful exercise to know who will be supporting and funding the nature center and who might need more information.
So I'm just going to jump in here. I apologize, but this is my role now. So I'm going to jump in and say that while polling to see whether it should be added to an agenda would be appropriate, voting in advance of voting would not be appropriate.
I'm not looking for voting.
It's the same difference. It should,
Vote for
it's
discussion.
going to be an ordinance. I would say that the call would be whether to poll to add this on for the next, have an appropriation ordinance for the next meeting.
That's perfectly reasonable. So we're gonna get a poll, we'll start at the end of the table, or do we take a roll call? Question, it doesn't, so Dan, you want to put it on for?
Yes.
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 But again, of course I'm a
So
yes.
you a yes or a no?
Of course I'm a yes. I will support my nature center and
Okay.
all of my, the
There you
board.
go.
I think if anybody has questions, we know that they make
Yeah,
themselves
they,
very
they know
available.
we're on site.
That I feel like if I have a question, I know where to go and where to reach out to.
And I want to thank the people for coming for
Yeah.
their positions. I think it's been a healthy discussion, and I don't find it at all contentious. I don't think there's a need for anything.
Yeah.
It's been a very healthy discussion. I want to thank everybody for answering
Yeah, that's
very
great.
great questions. I found the appropriate line of questions, so thank you. And I think that for all of us, we have additional flavors. I don't know if we're probably going to be very communicative and open and important. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we're all set, Deborah, for the 20th. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your presentation and everyone for coming.
Stay, there's lots of good stuff.
You're all welcome to stay for the rest of the council meeting if you'd like.
Stay.
That's a
Okay,
hint.
next item on the agenda to be considered, New Jersey Climate Superfund Act, Councilman Park.
This is, I'm putting this up, it's a,
Yeah, the door just opened.
oh. Okay. John. I know John. Make sure it wasn't John.
Oh, no.
John Tripp's on.
Okay.
Mayor, can I request a,
You want 2 minute break?
I did. Thank you. I just like to thank
Just a break, 2 minutes. Religious, 2 minutes.
It's a religious 2 minutes.
Means that he wants a tenant. I'm gonna film my one.
No, I'm gonna get one too. Thanks.
New Jersey Climate Superfund.
So think open space, except it's funded by fossil fuel companies, like the Exxons of the world. It's projected to be, and then you do a climate superfund, trust fund. It's controlled by the NJDEP. It's estimated to collect 50 billion a year, and it would fund green infrastructure projects throughout the state.
So is this for our information? What do we need?
And we're doing a resolution of support to go to the state, Senate and Assembly.
Dan, I have a question. So can we, is there a process now? Let's say we do this.
This is just creating the fund.
Got it. Okay.
I will say that there were some people that came to our last environmental commission that were talking about it. And there's other towns that are already sending these resolutions, right, Councilman?
Yep, lots of support for this from the bottom of the attachment. Wrong attachment, the other one. Food and Water Watch, League of Municipalities, most of the Assembly and Senate. Just a resolution of support.
That's fine. 50 years from now, we're gonna have one of these lithium mines, but that's for another day, right?
Just way worse. Way, way worse.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay. All right, next on the agenda is the River
What, this is
Edge.
gonna be our next meeting?
Yeah, right? Council, you.
Yes.
I'm getting it.
Yeah,
Yes. no,
Yeah,
I'm saying
on the
yes.
next agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, next agenda,
We're
please.
doing that ever.
Okay, next item, River Edge Road, median concept, David.
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, we did put funding in the 2025 capital ordinance to fund the downtown improvements and pedestrian safety. And one of those goals has been the improvements to River Edge Road. Our traffic engineer is here tonight to explain some of the concepts that we emailed to you under separate cover earlier. So, John?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Jarber from Engineering. So such a pleasure to be back to see you all again. My humble assistant, Allison, we prepared a couple of, to make things a little visual, a little easier to see. We put the concept plans on display boards so we all can look at the same sheet of music at the same time. I think you all have these plans on your computer, but I thought this would make it a little simpler. So, at the request of the town manager, and, in furtherance of other work that's been done by PFJ Associates previously with Council President Michaels, there's been a number of discussions and ideas about what we can do with River Edge Road. I'd like to pretty much kind of walk you guys through what we did and why, because there are some challenges here, and there's positive and negatives, all right? I think a good place to start is when I start right at Railroad Avenue and work my way back. And the reason why I started here is because this is a perfect example where there's positives and negatives, okay? The positive is this is a great location for us to improve the cross circulation from on River Edge from one side to the other. My proposal would be to do some access limits, all right? The crossover between the CVS and the grocery store parking lot at this location, this would eliminate that. But that elimination shouldn't cause any giant traffic problems. Obviously, you're a traffic guy, right? So it's a good idea for you to look at this. I honestly feel this is going to be such a nice safety improvement. To limit that cross traffic and improve it with this lovely green space in. The green space in the middle, guys, is going to be hard to maintain. There's positives and negatives to everything we're looking at, okay? From a traffic circulation standpoint, I feel very comfortable this is not going to cause a negative. All right, so I think that you're going to get, and somebody's definitely going to say, hey, I'm concerned about this moving to cross access. there are so many ways to get around this that are so much safer than making that 3.5, 4 lane crossover between the two. Okay? The other thing is, it's also gonna limit people walking across here. One of the things I've seen a lot when I've been in town is, I'm not really sure where everybody's coming from, okay? I still haven't gotten my feet in the ground with where children or young people are coming. I see a lot of teenage or younger people crossing this area, so this is a busy area for folks to come. This will limit that, it will force them to come down to the crosswalk. And I think that's a good idea. This is a tough location, because drivers are driving their car, they're not really expecting people to walk across the street here. We really expect to see them here or here.
No,
And so this is really an extreme improvement, so that's the front part of the deal. As we move further back, we're gonna just roll right down, stop you at any point you wanna ask questions.
Question. You said it was 3.5 to 4 lanes. Is that the whole width of corner to corner? And yeah, was it ever explored to make it 1-and-1, 2 lanes and parking, street parking?
We have a combination here, okay? So what we've done is we've tried
That's already
to
there.
accommodate, because,
We have a
the
liquor store
is.
right there.
Yeah, you're right there, right there. That's a liquor store.
We try to accommodate them by keeping parking there. So, which actually, there's a lot of challenges in this, right? Because it could really be detrimental to their business if they were to lose all the on-street parking. So we're trying to, trying to really be context sensitive.
So I apologize, I don't want to cut you off. I just wanted to ask like motivation wise. So you had said you're not sure like where kids are coming from. Like, yes, there's a ton of kids that are coming from there because beyond that is our high school, right? And also when our middle school spills out, they come across that and they go.
I'm not making that walk.
Well, I think they do. And then they come over to our center of town. What's the motivation to do this exactly? Like why, like, where's this one coming from? I just wanted to know. Oh, okay. It's your, okay.
So, a couple years ago, we had a pedestrian death on this road. We had some issues where people were hit in intersections or not intersections, trying to cross. We saw a lot of safety. And I sat with our traffic division actually, on our police, and I said, we walked the road. I actually walked it with Mayor Zinnig years ago. And we said, how can we improve this? People are playing chicken at Stop and Shop and CVS lots. They're crossing 4 lanes in their cars. And the kids are all there. There's a bus stop over there. People were worried against the bus. And so a lot of this, we met with the county, and this is part, county roads, and we said, what we do here, and this sort of got drawn up, on little pencils, and then it's.
Okay, I just didn't know where it was.
In addition to Lauren doing everything.
That's not what I'm saying. She asked where the impetus came from, and excuse me, President, I wasn't done.
No, please go on.
The other thing is, there was a push for beautification.
Okay.
And so it's a very industrial part of our thing. So the idea of the medians was to light them up and to put, some lights there because it's very dark in the night. The bus terminal there was complaints that it was too dark. People couldn't see people getting on the bus, and at dusk, especially in the winter. And then, of course, to beautify with trees, flowers, whatever else we want, that would be in a median or just straight red. Now I will turn to Council President Michael, who has spearheaded this with BMJ. And I'm not saying I'm the only person working on this. She asked where the concept came from. Please.
You mentioned about the median would be lit up too?
Well, originally, the concept was to add lighting. Or, we had talked, you and I, Adam, had looked at options for whole street lighting along this bridge. Remember we did, we went to the lighting lights? Well, it was cost prohibitive in the median, but then we looked at along the street at least to add street lights.
So let's let John continue on.
Let's make sure you see, there's also a bike lane there as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
I think that's another important element that it occurs in this section. And I think one of the goals that we were asked to try to attain was not only try to accommodate parking, put a green median and have bike lanes.
Wow.
This is
There's a lot going on.
This is from a design perspective, it's a lot of work to figure this out.
This is the project that came out of, the larger downtown work. This was one of the 20 ideas that had multiple vettings from the community when we had these reviews. So this is what came out of that, and this is the time.
I think, is it possible this goes back as much as 10 years, but we're doing some research?
No.
No, this was the original, so this was one of the ideas.
Well, we had the downtown, right?
I'm going to interject one thing about, 10 years ago, 15 to 20 years ago. And I was on the council, Dan may have actually been on the council too, but there were a bunch of iterations changing the downtown in terms of the parks and this, and, and the estimated budgets at that time were, 15 to $20 million to get it started. And the view at that time was do everything or do nothing. So no one was writing a check for 20 million, so therefore nothing got done. Whereas kind of now our view is let's make some improvements as we go, where you may have seen some of those plans from the past, and that's what nothing ever went anywhere until now.
Well, there seems to be a lot of interest in making improvements, and it goes back to the money.
I had a question, actually, about the crosswalks. One of the wonderful things that you guys did at BFJ, with our downtown committees, was shorten the distance between the enclosed, so the intersection.
Like on Pier
Yeah, you're not near Mr. Walk, that whole intersection we built it in. Except that here, they're still rather large and they're not parallel. So I know that the one on West Railroad and River Edge, right on the right side of your drawing that's closest to you, that one is a very hard one to see pedestrians. It's a wide turn for the car. Yes, exactly. It's a wide turn for the cars. Cars are coming from all four directions. And so that was a safety thing that we were looking at on how to improve. Is there anything here that we can do to maybe move that crosswalk to the left, straighten it out, shorten it, so that it's not within the four turn lanes?
Okay, so this is an action plan. And wherever you want to add something like that, you have to move something else. So for example, and I really very much like corner bump outs.
Yeah.
But in this case, and it's very rare you can say this section of road will work better with the new design and giving you some space for that greenway. If you want to do a corner bump out here, which I love, all right, then you very much are not going to be able to do the green space. You can't have both. Or you have to do the bike lanes for this entire block. So you have to, so I try to, it's really hard, guys. We had a lot of iterations with, that's a really good question because in the office, all us engineers get together on plans like this. We try to figure out what works best. So you go through a number of iterations through these things to come up with these plans. And the challenge for us is that there are so many things happening here, and to be context sensitive and keep in mind things like the liquor store, the crossover, pedestrians, you have to give up some things to get others. We felt that it was better to have in this area, because really the downtown is like the beautification area, there's an opportunity to do something pretty grand, that the larger green space made the most sense over the bump outs. All right? So, it's a challenge. But we could do that. We could retool the plan and put a bump out in and come out. We could do that, but understand you could potentially move the entire Green Island, do the papers, people, paper lengths and requirements. We still have to meet, standard ASHTO guidelines and DOT design guidelines. I can't throw them out the door.
What about a potential traffic light at that intersection with don't walk and walk signs?
Which intersection?
Right there.
At Railroad? That's in our long-term, that's actually in our other study. That's phase 3 of the, I don't know if we're going to talk about this tonight, the interim project. That's phase 3 of that project. We're finishing just the first part of that.
No, what I'm saying is, and he's answering it, it's in phase 3 for the traffic light there.
Without a doubt, we agree with you, Mayor. The traffic light should go there. It would significantly improve both pedestrian access and circulation. This is a very busy intersection.
But
that would be a great improvement.
What is the traffic light cost there?
It won't be as much as over at East Clinton, okay? It will be less than East Clinton Light. River Bridge Road is kind of road, all right? And that's something
We're
that.
gonna reuse the traffic light, shut it down, seriously, closer, so that's what the chief said.
Well,
Maybe we could possibly reuse them.
the old lights is in place? Oh. Yeah, they're so old. Anyway, so I love our chief, by the way. And he is the most frugal guy ever.
Yes.
And he knows how to keep, let me tell you what, you guys owe him an award for keeping the lights on in town. He's doing a phenomenal job. Absolutely spectacular. I really would recommend, if this is right in downtown, this is a key intersection, we should invest in a new traffic light or something. Okay? Maybe we can find a
It's
grant.
really that, Lauren.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
we can find
this
one.
is rather important because, I mean, you don't live here, but I need to just explain something to you. Many people, and I know it's illegal, but we do it almost every day, we make lefts
It's not illegal.
into, it's not, but you, see, the chief
not
said it
illegal.
was illegal.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
Anyway, so we are on River Edge Road and we take a left into the Stop and Shop. Okay, yeah, so we're coming here, we're going to that. Many people do that. If you're too,
If you came down just here and hopefully we're gonna have a little traffic light, to just drive another 125 feet down, wouldn't that be much safer?
Can you go down Railroad and in that?
and in that, and you're going in that, what I just want you to consider as the traffic engineer is I'm not sure you understand just how much traffic is being diverted because every day and every hour, people are making lefts into there. So I just want you to consider, I don't know if pushing everybody to a place that's currently doesn't have a light, that's a four-way area, is the safest plan.
All right, so I have Lauren, then I have a question.
Julie, that was part of the point, actually, because everyone is making these turns all over the place in those intersections, at CVS and Stop and Shop, crossing the lanes. It is safe, and that's how, this is exactly why we were actually initiating the project, because everyone's just like chickens in those intersections, those roads. But I wanted to ask John, on the traffic light, because it's a county road, is there a process in which the county would fund this?
Because we've made such a great impression on the county, I've been working with Bergen County for a very long time. They are very dear to the Tenafly. We're very much like you guys, which is great. We actually feel good about that. I'm not so sure that they feel as wrong about it as us.
Not anymore, not
It's been
anymore.
wonderful to work with us. Every question we've asked, Nancy Dargis and Joe Pemia, they step up to the plate every minute. There is a process the county has where they will fund, but they want you to have skin in the game. So you're going to have to pay for part. Depending on the nature of the intersection and what we can give them evidence-wise for the need for improvement, which won't be very hard here, okay? They do have a process where they can fund part of it. It's totally at the county engineer's direction, and because we've gone that extra mile at East Clinton, and, you know, they see what we're doing, we have all of our skin in the game there. They've actually brought up to me their willingness to participate in some work on our part. So I would say that, you know, once you guys decide where we want to put that bullet, you give me a direction, and then I can bring it up to them and say, hey, we found a location, we'd really like to have your help, and what can you do for us here? We will get significantly more benefit by telling them what we want, being clear about it, and letting them tell us what they'd be willing to do, as opposed to, okay, when you pay half, you pay three-quarters. They have a process. I think we should work with their process, but we have to be very clear on what we want.
So
What our objective is this evening? This is
the objective was going to be about the next question I was going to ask. My question is, does the council generally, we're not talking about the shade of green or exactly the trees we put there or don't put there, does the council generally like this idea, number one? And number two, this Annex A about this traffic light we're talking about now, even though it's in episode 3, that if he can help us with some economics from the county, is that an option? Do we want to have John give us a sense outside this meeting of what this would cost and what bidding documents would look like. You know, just to get, you know, we can spend 4 hours talking about it, but, right, but do you generally like the idea, and then he can drill down into details and get back to David on that?
Subject to funding is a one.
Okay.
What is the estimate?
No, you want to find out?
What is the estimate?
Well, we don't, well, that's the next.
I think you do ballparks. of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So generally, the engineering we're going to focus here just at the immediate envelope of Railroad Avenue and River Ridge. The engineering is going to be somewhere between 45 and 75,000, depending on the company. Depending on if we go forward with getting rid of the railroad. If we get rid of the railroad, then the engineering will be lower. All right, the actual construction of the signal at this location, they're looking at probably about $350,000 to $400,000. That would include milling and digging the road, new signing and striping, and within a reasonable envelope, whatever we want to do here.
I would, again, you said it right the first time when this first started, which is what happens is we try to do everything all at once and then slow everything down. The original plan was without the traffic light. We all know it's taking us a year for these to come in.
Yeah.
I would start with this. Don't let this slow down. John's amazing. If in parallel, without hindering, we could start investigating the traffic light, I'm all good with that. But I don't want the traffic light to slow this.
I have one question.
Is that-
I agree, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Chief President, Park Avenue now has a listed letter.
Yeah.
HRT. Is the suggestion here this would be elevated? No, so this would be flat, right?
Will it be curving? Will it be curving?
Oh, those things we can talk about. My preference would be a curve, we would have a curve around the whole thing.
Right.
And raise it up a little bit, maybe you put a wrought iron fence or something to help.
Perfect.
So some delineation.
We're on the same page.
3 feet or.
A lot of those aesthetic details would really be the nature of, say, the next meeting with you guys.
Yeah,
Maybe you
exactly.
guys could kind of narrow it down to make a small committee of council members.
So, John,
I know it's hard with the.
What I think we'd like to have is to get an engineer's estimate to do the striping in the green area, so, and to get that into a biddable document.
Sure.
To see whether or not that can be a go for 2025, since we do have some budget dollars appropriated for it.
That is one of the things that we can take into plan, guys, is that
Agreed.
this makes a special attempt to try not to affect the existing signal at Tenafly Road and River Road, because that would be extremely expensive. That would be probably more than the budget of the rest of the parts of the project. All right, I have not done this with Dylan. How much
Wait,
does it
what would
cost?
be expensive?
If we had to replace the light.
Oh, yeah, no, we don't want
At
to do that.
Tenafly Road, it's probably over $500,000.
John, we're not interested in that.
Right.
I don't even
Hence the plan.
Too complicated.
That's, I didn't get down there yet, but that's the reason why the plan is the way it is, because I couldn't do more with this without having to cause that light to be replaced. We looked at instances like putting a pump, I mean, you can see where I put the striking. That's where I put a concrete pump out. But I can't do a concrete pump out because it affects the traffic light, and now you replace the light. This is the same challenge over here. I really don't like the way the crosswalks lay out. But if I change them much more than this, you're buying a new light.
Gotcha.
But I do just want to point out that I agree with Adam in the sense of, we can't assume that there's going to be a traffic light at the other place in question. And that's just why I go back to my concern to you as a traffic engineer, is I just want you to understand how much traffic makes a left into Stop and Shop that is now going to what's going to be the equivalent of a 4-way stop, because we're not having traffic light there anytime soon.
There's no traffic, it's a 4-way stop now.
But no,
It's yellow one when people fly through it.
it's yellow. But
Okay, it's
okay,
yellow, yeah.
but half of those people that end up there are pulling directly into Stop and Shop. I'm saying that the island is stopping them from doing it. I just want him to be aware.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, you're just putting a lot more cars. From where we live, we turn onto River Edge Road, then we make a left, across the other lane, into Stop and Shop. And I'm just, you're the engineer. I just want you to understand, now we're kicking a lot of cars
into a different.
to a
yeah.
different area.
I think it's gonna be fine.
Well, I think ultimately, from a safety perspective, this is better, but I have clear concerns. So what I'll do is, part of our project is, we'll go out and we'll do a fresh traffic count here. We'll make sure we count the cars that are going in here, and we'll do a new analysis of this to make sure it's gonna be okay.
Can I suggest barricading that entrance?
This one here.
Yeah, like a pilot run almost. I would see how bad it gets. I think her concern's pretty legitimate. If you've got police barricades and did this where the green is with barricades, I think you would see it in real time. I think you would.
I can speak with the chief, the chief of police has the power to do that.
I
So if the council-
think it's,
One at a time, guys.
no, if you make that barricade, he'll see it immediately.
You're talking about putting some barriers in.
So,
Right now.
right,
Yeah.
just to see how bad it gets.
Okay, so that's part of the whole.
No, as a pilot, just to do the traffic count.
My concern about know what it's gonna look like when they can't go in that way.
Okay, so John's gonna have to have a conversation with the police chief and work out the details.
It's funny, just, again, if the entire town is super angry at that, I'm just doubly excited, because every single person that's upset is illegally making turns, hurting my children and the residents and car crashes.
I'm actually trying to make it that his consideration is
The traffic flow.
real for
So,
traffic.
no,
That's all I care about.
her thing
I don't care
is,
who's wrong, right?
her thing is you're moving the danger from that illegal left turn into Stop and Shop in, down the block to the corner of
They're
Railroad,
moving it to there.
So John.
And I just wanna
where
know
it's
what that
a
looks like.
four-way, two-way stop.
Illegal.
No.
You can check it
It's a
out.
safety concern.
All right, Lauren.
I don't think, I don't know that you're
I'm
necessarily
with her on this one.
considering what I'm saying.
Well, that's the engineer's job to figure that out.
Yeah, but
But
Mark,
this
just to be
suggestion solves
clear,
that.
Who else is gonna do it but a traffic engineer?
No, this,
Mark.
my suggestion solves that.
Right.
I just want to be, I'm not
Go ahead.
against any plan.
Right, so what's the
I just
suggestion?
want to be,
Into the
You're-
substance of it.
You're moving two left turns into one denser left turn.
So-
Right.
so
So
that's
if
why
if the
we're
pilot,
saying-
if you study it first, you'll see it real time.
Well, he's gotta come back to us,
Yeah.
and he's gotta study it and figure it out.
Yeah, we're all on the same page.
I don't think she uses stuff in G Street, it was hard in G
Yes,
Street,
Lauren.
people get used to things and they get accustomed to things and they figure, people figure it
You just
out.
brought up a very good example. How do you feel about how J Street's working now?
People were.
It's hit or miss. It's still hit or miss.
Does citizens feel so much safer to drive to that
It's hit or
intersection
miss.
Yeah, I agree, of course. And I stop at the stop signs.
now? Those are my first steps.
You're a rare breed.
You're not.
Go ahead, Lauren.
everybody does
So
that.
Julie, one of the ways that John and his team did a fantastic job, if you take a look at it, one of the things we are adding is actually the left and right turning lanes on the left. on the
No,
lower
I
part of the
have no
street.
problem. I
It
just
is
want it to
absolutely
be a
fine.
real study. That's all
Let
I'm
me just
saying.
explain. One of the things that Chief Chamberlain and I did when we walked this project is he said, that is an extra wide lane. So people are actually going around each other, someone stopped, people are going around on the right side, very unsafe, people are cutting off on the left, same thing. By making, and if you look even beyond that intersection towards the left side, you are now actually dividing traffic into turning lanes. You are actually reducing the amount of traffic that now has to fight to get to the intersection. And I understand, there still will be an enormous amount of traffic turning onto West Railroad, but the rest of the traffic can smoothly move through, which will alleviate some of the issue.
I just think it's all solved if he's able to barricade that entrance and then we just get a real count. That's all, right? I don't think that's
We're all on
controversial.
the same page with that. We're all on the same page with that.
Fine.
So can I ask a different question to John,
Yeah.
if you don't mind? John, I love the plan. Thank you for working on it. How do we engage the county so that we are actually, what this group needs to do is actually engaging, or do you want us to step back and let your team do all of those conversations?
Not to grandstand or anything, my recommendation would be, I need your permission to bring something like this to the county. And let's shoot an initial shot over the back. And let's get the reaction off the record. Okay, let me get the county engineer to do this. Absolutely will, and then come back and guys say, hey, look at them, they loved it, they hated it, or here's where their concerns were. And then we can look and see if we can accommodate.
And you have concern.
If you're going around, you might as well go all. Here's the thing, is that we need to, I'd love to fix everything, to bring everything up to them, but if we don't stay focused and stay pinpoint, we're gonna get nothing.
Right.
Stay focused.
But having that engagement of borough for the next couple of years on this project, gives us a very good door to say, and these roads, and these roads.
Yeah, so by doing these things and working with them and following their process and not doing what other towns do, by actually going to them and asking permission and following their process, we will make significantly more progress than say other folks who just go do whatever they want and then ask for forgiveness.
Right.
And you have all the data on pedestrian deaths and safety and accidents, obviously, for all.
We have access to a state database, but it's not very good. Usually Chief Chamberlain has significantly better information.
I know the traffic division can keep that, and I just think that that would be, the idea of this initially was pedestrian safety, bike safety, flow of traffic, so.
There's a lot more we could do, but, I think that your guys, the direction I got from David, I think it makes the most sense because a lot more makes the price tag go through the roof. Right now, we're talking, this is limitless right now. I'm not gonna change anything at this traffic light. I'm gonna keep it the same. Now, we will have to do a new plan for the county, all right, so there's a little engineering nonsense involved because of the laws, all right? But we're able to keep all the lights exactly where they are, all right? The remainder of this, I don't have as much green space as I'd like. They wanted to cover that because I want you guys to understand that there's room to do it. They're saying, well, why didn't you? I have to get the fire truck in and out. I have to get the ambulances in and out. So I need to keep a lot of this structuring in this core area in order to incorporate the bike lanes. Now, if you wanted to lose the bike lanes, that gives me room to do different turning codes. But again, we're at the office working together on this. This is my best plan for balance to accommodate everyone. We've got some green, we've got the space that the emergency services need, but it will get a little bit more green at the end. So it's not, it's every little piece I couldn't get in, but I tried to get balance to get the best.
Can I just ask one question? I just want to make sure school traffic was something that was considered.
School buses,
I mean, not buses.
Not buses, and
We have no
now
buses.
8 a.m. and 3 p.m. How bad it, like,
Are you
Like, because you are taking people.
I can help you with that. Every town I work in has that problem. You want to know what the answer is? I really wish I could convince school boards, and I work for some of them, just consider doing some of the
staggered,
And because of teachers, you would, and you don't think about this stuff, because of the teachers' contracts and the janitors, and it's so complicated for them to make that kind of change. I feel so bad for them, because they would like to, because they also feel the strain at 5 minutes in school let-in, oh my God. And it's every day, 5 days a week. That's a giant challenge for all of us.
All right, so is everyone good with John pursuing this, with the county, got some conversations going? Okay.
Thank you.
and just
Thank you for your time, John.
just a small wish, extend the bike path toward Piermont and go.
Yeah, we have, I think we have it on the.
Yeah, no, if you can, we have it, but I put it in.
We'll put them in the Wilson.
Yes, that they put in the hallway.
Yeah, that would be fine.
John, you have a question for the engineer, John?
Yeah, before you go.
Could you just answer this gentleman's question?
So I was going to say, public comment section, you'll be on that.
Go ahead. All right, John, what's your comment?
Okay, first of all, the advice from Piermont Road, last few years, I've been especially interested in the walkways and the handicap facilities. And there are a number of problems on Piermont Road, and I'm not sure that these solve them.
Piermont.
The first thing is that the first crosswalk is right next to the corner, and cars go down River Edge from one direction and to J Street, I think, from the other direction. And they turn into Piermont, and a slow person crossing Piermont, and I know about slow people, have no chance to respond to the people turning. They don't know they're turning, and the people turning don't know that there's a slow person in the crosswalk. So I think the crosswalk location there is really dangerous. Secondly, there are also at least 3 restaurants, and then some more around the corner, that are on Piermont that therefore would use the handicap spaces. And the crosswalk for all three of them is down by the corner. And unfortunately, that's a long walk to walk. And as I said, the crosswalk itself is fairly dangerous. What I would prefer is that the handicap spaces be located more in the central part of the block, and that a crosswalk be located near them to service those handicap locations.
You're talking about the triangle parking lot, right? The brand new parking lot? Are you talking about the brand new parking lot?
He's talking about the corner of Mr. Wok and Sushi where the bump outs are. And he's saying that if he wants the crosswalk to be further down, like closer to Axia or
Mr. Walk, so that's, we're talking about a whole different plan now.
I thought
We're talking about Miramar.
I didn't not a problem, just River Edge.
We're just talking about River Edge right now.
Yeah, but that is the corner of River Edge, but it turns, all right, the crosswalk right there.
Right, crosswalk right there, but not Axia. Okay, all right, thanks, John.
Okay, I have another comment on another part of this. If you move up to River Edge, you have a beautiful streetscape. You have the borough buildings on one side and the common on the other side. That's really a relatively nice street view that I would personally prefer not to see going with disturbed street parking. But a few years ago, the police chief striped River Edge Road to channelize the car traffic down more near the middle of the road. And as far as I know, that's been fairly effective. And one of the effects of that is that it reduces the effective width of River Edge Road. And I propose that River Edge Road actually be reduced to those dimensions. Because that way, instead of having a median strip, which is a separate maintenance issue, you can enlarge the common on either one side or both sides, and just enlarge the parking facilities to cover that new added space. And that would serve to reduce the width of River Edge Road. When I was on the council, we had a proposal, at the time I got on the council, to put a median strip on River Edge Road.
Oh.
And the fire department strongly objected to that. They said anywhere along River Edge Road, a median strip is going to interfere with their trucks. No. And we just abandoned all discussion about a median strip. And I don't know, perhaps that's no longer an objection, but that wasn't the time. And
Well, he's considered it, right? He said that wasn't a problem this time.
well, it was a number of years ago.
Yeah, we took that into consideration, everything's planned.
But in any event, I think that if you, in effect, reclaim part of River Edge Road for the park on one side and part of the River Edge Road on the other side for the police station and fire station, or just move it over to the park, I think that would be a big enhancement there. And it would serve the advantage of reducing the width of the road and increasing our park area.
All right, John, okay, we got it. Thank you, we appreciate it. All right, John, you have clarity? Okay, John, the other John. Too many Johns. All right, guys, thank you. Let's move on. Next item is the tree ordinance, David.
Yeah, you're all good.
I'm excused?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, you're all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are for us.
All right, David, why don't you go with tree ordinance change here?
Sure. So
David,
the,
just super quick, I see that Annie Lee is on there. That was the correspondence. Is this? the
Yeah, so I was
correspondence?
just gonna ask the mayor if he wanted to go to Annie first before we get into it's a tree.
There's a letter from her.
Oh, okay.
I
So you want to do
have
that before the tree ordinance?
I think just for her.
That's fine, okay. Annie? Annie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, you wanted to make some comments.
Where should I start? So recently,
Yeah, I
my
would start with the email that you sent to me.
so recently at my parents' house, they had to remove the two trees, and then they were told that it's required to replant 8 major trees or 16 minor trees. And then at the time they didn't realize that it's going to cost so much money, but they already took off the trees. So after they took up the trees, they went out for shopping at a nursery, and then they figured out that one major tree is going to cost about $750 each.
Because current city ordinance says it has to be more than 3 inch on the trunk of
Yes,
trees.
3 inch or 3.5 inches or bigger. Which turns out to be, including the labor fees and everything, it's gonna come out closer to $10,000. But the bond that they put down was 3,600, right?
Yeah.
3,600.
So
And
at the
then
point when they're doing it, they thought they're going to get the money back because they thought it was a down payment for removing a tree in their property. Remind you, the property we have, my parents has, there's a 60 trees, and then there's only 2 trees they took it down, and then one of them was actually dying, and another one was causing a damage to the house. So my parents are kind of upset right now because they didn't know. First of all, this whole the process was during the winter time, so nursery was open at the time, and they feel like the information should be provided at the time of requiring a permit for the trees, how much the trees is going to cost. But when they requiring for the permits, we're just told that oh yeah, you just simply have to replant more trees, and then you should be fine, and then you get the money back, maybe whatever full amount. But then comes to sub spring when they're going out and shopping, one tree costs around $750, and then they have to plant 8 of them, and then now because it's 3 inch on the trunk, it's about I went out and shopping for them. The trees are usually the on the bottom. I mean, the roots of a trees are about 4 foot. So, and then they're recommending digging it 1.5 to two, about 2 times more bigger holes for the the roots grow. So, if you times that, like my father actually, when he find out the tree is gonna cost that much, he went back to the bureau of a tree or whatever, and they just told him, well, you have a big enough backyard to plant all this. Who want to plant their trees whole backyard? I don't understand that either. So
so basically they were telling them that they have big enough space for 16 minor trees or 8 major trees. But if you think about it, who wants to fill their backyard with the trees? Then they're losing like half of the space of the backyard.
and again, it's there's a 60 trees there already taken care of, you know, and removing only
Yeah,
remove
so,
because the issue.
yeah, I think we heard your input, and I did send the email that you had sent around to the council. So, Omar, I think we're done with that for right now on the speakerphone or on the Zoom. So basically, what was explained to me is they went and took a tree permit, take down 2 trees. The cost to take down the 2 trees was $4,500. They were required to put $3,600 up for a performance bond. And in order to get the $3,600 back, they have to spend $10,000 to get that $3,600 back. So their appeal is, or their question about the tree ordinance is that it wasn't explained upfront that the $3,600 essentially become a fee unless they were willing
But
to
I think
pay
it's more than
$10,000.
that. I think they're also saying, this is the same thing that happened with the Peister, that it's impossible. And I actually went to the Peister, so I could confirm that, to put the amount of trees that they were required to replant, that their property does not fit that kind of planting of that many trees. It's just impossible. So I think it's the money and it's not just the money, it's the money and the requirements that have to be, yeah, that have to be reconsidered, in my opinion.
Wendy, why aren't we doing the exact same process we did with the Spicer family? That they file an appeal, comes before us.
But this is gonna keep happening.
I understand that, and we're gonna discuss the ordinance.
I don't think we need to get to that,
Hold on one second. But I don't think that we can do this on the fly, like, I haven't seen this property, I don't know this property, I don't have anything, I don't know what the details are. I don't like doing this on the fly, so if we have a procedure in place, ask this gentleman to follow the procedure, but then we should discuss the ordinance.
But
Yeah, we're not
that-
solving.
we're not solving anything.
My understanding is that
This is just a correspondence.
yes, that the individuals that just spoke did so as part of a show and tell, so to speak, as to let the council know that perhaps there is a need for reconsideration of some of the aspects of the ordinance. They weren't coming seeking their voting tonight.
Okay. I wasn't sure, because
So-
again, our person here.
So
By the way, the correspondence is not on.
yeah, it was.
It is on there, yes. We accept that.
It got off for some reason.
Julie.
All right, anyway, yeah, so I've spent a while on this since we got the correspondence, and then I have a lot of comments regarding the feedback on the tree code, but we'll talk about that in a minute. For the purpose of these people, she mentions in her letter that one of the two trees is dying. In the tree code, if there is a dead tree or dying tree, you do not need to mitigate. So they bonded $3,600 for 2 full trees. I want to say that, in my opinion, and I'm certainly very passionate about the trees, but they just didn't understand the process that if in advance of removing the tree that was dying, if they had a letter from the arborist, the tree company that said, hey, this is a dying tree, that doesn't require the mitigation. They would have gotten that part of the bond back. So I'm just throwing it out here to everybody. This is what I was emailing you earlier. With the purpose of this particular case, if it becomes a hardship appeal, I'm comfortable if they got proof from whoever removed it, say, yes, in fact, that second tree was not a healthy 40-year-old tree, but it actually was a dying tree, then I'm okay with them getting half of that performance bond back, because they only removed one healthy tree. So that's what I wanted to throw out there, because that is in the code. They just have to the code requires that you prove that it was a dying tree.
Are we talking about reconsidering the work? I think that's what we're talking about.
That's separate.
Right.
I'm saying, well,
Not this particular case.
no, we are talking about this case first, because
No,
the
we're not
first.
talking about this.
We don't have any facts.
It's an example of similar to
Yeah,
the
right.
price store.
This keeps coming up, we gotta figure out.
I have plenty to say about the ordinance, but I just wanted to put that out there.
So the other thing that I sent out to you is the tree ordinance, or chapter 26 of our code. I literally just really copied and pasted and borrowed this section that I'm suggesting under 26 1.7D. That language is basically in the tree ordinance under a landmark tree. And if they cut down a landmark tree, they would only have to pay $500, as it is in the code right now. So that part probably ought to be revised.
So we take a vote that we need to revisit our tree ordinance and have a discussion.
Yeah, I think so.
About any of these particular examples?
Yeah.
No.
We're not talking about that.
No, we're on the agenda is the tree ordinance. So it's now is the time that we're talking about.
He's looking at the tree ordinance.
Yes.
So it's the question, should we look at the tree?
Yes, I think that's the question.
We already looked at it.
It's tonight.
You guys want to talk about this particular topic tonight? Or do you want to-
It's on the agenda, yes.
Okay, that's not, I didn't finish my question. Do you want to have a committee that goes over the details of this and come back? So a tree ordinance needs to get looked at.
I disagree with that question, Mayor,
But
because
that's why we're having this conversation.
I would say no, because I think that determining if it needs to be revisited is going to require some discussion now.
You want to
We can have
We
this
can have these.
conversation.
So the mayor is saying that, should we revisit this code, right? Is that?
Yes.
And right, and I'm saying, I don't think you need to revisit the code. It depends at the end of this discussion if you feel the code needs to get.
Yes, I agree with
But
you.
with this discussion, specifically, this discussion.
You mean this property?
This property.
Oh, no, that's not.
So you want to talk, so you want to talk,
This discussion then is, should we revisit the tree ordinance?
yes.
Okay.
As
We're already
right-
there.
Right now.
All right, so
Yes.
David made this recommendation.
Right.
What does everybody think?
I have,
The
I would like to
recommendation is
talk.
just a financial
Is
difference,
to
not.
enact this paragraph.
Yeah, this paragraph.
They have the ability to pay.
But I think it's more than just a financial thing. I think we have to get there's a problem with the mitigation. Like, I went to the Kaiser and I said, there is
Right.
absolutely no way they could put the required tree amount that was being asked back on their property. No way.
So does
This ain't the same thing here. This is gonna keep happening.
So
There's
this
something
is
wrong. There's something wrong.
Right.
So this is one aspect,
Yeah.
tonight, this recommendation is one aspect of the tree ordinance. It's not changing the whole ordinance, it's one
Yeah.
topic, and it essentially gives, the mayor and the council
I really do want.
the ability to let someone pay a fee for not mitigating these circumstances.
Can I really speak to this? Because I've spent like an enormous amount of
Sure.
hours, for previous administration, thank you. Okay, so the suggested paragraph is basically saying, with the exception of that other place with the landmark tree, basically what is recommended, and I don't support these recommendations, this paragraph recommendation, is what's proposed is two things. One is lowering the fees of removing the tree. $150 lower for each major, from a $450 to $300. So basically, you take out a 40-year-old tree, you have to, according to the code, in this chart right here, you have to replace it with 4 new majors. And that bond that you pay is $450 for the 4 major trees that you have to replace it with. And we're saying to lower it to $300. And then also lowering it by $100 for each minor one. So instead of $250 performance bond, we're saying lower it to $150. So it's talking about lowering the fees. And if anything, I hear from people all the time that it should be raised, because it doesn't represent the interest of the borough to make it easier financially to remove the trees. It's always a top concern of a majority of residents. And the loss of trees in our community and our overall master plan speaks to the continued need of the integration of the green spaces throughout town. The larger the footprint of the home, the less integration of this green space. But a relatively strong tree code disincentivizes the removal of trees in some of the cases. Not, unfortunately, enough of them. But I want to talk about these fees. The amount of money in the tree fund can be and should be easily spent every year. When speaking to the previous DPW director, he said that the time to choose the planting sites and the labor of the DPW workers to plant the trees, it's quite labor intensive, and that the tree planting DPW crew was unable to work on other projects. So he said to me, he didn't have the time or the manpower to plant as many as one. And as they're perpetually short-staffed, this was, I'm sure, it was a hard ask, and it will be in the future. So the year prior to DPW Director Cassidy coming, the prior DPW Director had cleaned out the tree fund by hiring a company that planted the trees throughout the town. And it can be spent frequently. And I don't have an issue with using the tree funds to pay for our company, as we're about to do, to handle our mitigation reviews and hopefully future plantings. I think that's a wise use of the money. And that easily spends our tree funds.
And the amount of money in the fund is not as robust as you might think, because the DPW director, Mike Cassidy, would always say to Susan that we don't know how much money would need to be returned to residents who mitigated. Now, we should have that number, we should know that, but it was always very fuzzy, because he didn't have a clear view of what money was attributable to the forfeited funds as opposed to money that needs to be returned, either because the resident had mitigated or that Mike Cassidy hadn't had the chance to go and confirm that the resident was within that window of time and the mitigation might still occur. That's why we're now hiring this company, to get a clearer sense of what will need to go back. So I am not for lowering these fees. I do believe people should, read the tree code before they're removing and then know what can come back to them and what can't. Because yes, very clear, if you know you are not gonna have the room on your property to replant the amount of trees required, you're gonna know that some of that bond you're not gonna get back. It's gonna go to our Shade Tree Trust. But I wanted to just take this opportunity also to say something else you had put in your email to us, David, which interests me as much, which is this idea of our Shade Tree Trust period, and because I think it's a very important point. You mentioned that the Division of Local Government Services has questioned our practice of forfeiting tree bonds becoming donations to the Shade Tree Trust during our budget review. And this is important because it's not clear to me whether the trust could be modified to include not just donations, but in fact forfeiture money. I believe we need to work on and explaining it as an earmark as opposed to a donation. And I think this is very important because if there's a problem in our wording, then we need to fix it within the Shade Tree Trust, because I can't support it going, these collected mitigated fees going to a general fund to then be appropriated to the Shade Tree Trust, because I think that solution weakens the important role of this trust. If the council says right now, Shade Tree Trust should receive money for every tree, like a 1-to-1 ratio, I take it from the general fund, plant a new tree, then future governing bodies, they can very easily appropriate less. And they could say, less Shade Tree Trust funds are gonna go, so they'll spend the remainder on other things like roads. And in addition, it's clearer to residents that the forfeit of their money that's going to replant trees, rather than go to some general fund, they'll know it's going to the Shade Tree Trust. This is what they're forfeiting to. So it seems like it's better if it's used in a general fund, that might make residents more angry. They'll say, why is it going to general fund? So again, I don't support lowering these fees. So that's why I don't believe this needs to be revisited. I'd be open to a survey of the public, but I highly doubt you're gonna find a majority of the residents would want any weakening of the code. So that's why I don't support this amendment.
I just feel like we have to look at this part, not the money. I agree, we shouldn't lower the money, but we have to revisit whether these numbers, the amount of trees that you have to require, that they make sense, because right now I'm hearing they don't, and I'd like to revisit this, because what's gonna happen is people are gonna say it's gonna be too expensive, and it's not gonna work, so I'm gonna keep my $3,500, I'm not gonna plant one tree, and we're all gonna.
But then that will go to the trust.
But still, we're not gonna plant tree, it's gonna be.
That's the
this
point.
doesn't seem realistic. This just doesn't seem realistic, so I would like to revisit this.
I agree. I think there also needs to be a differentiation here between a homeowner and a contractor.
There are two.
And I think that, I hate to say this, but I think if it's a new home, rules have to apply. The whole point is we want to avoid clear cutting. We want to make sure that there's landscaping, vegetation, and privacy back, and flood control and all that good stuff, shade trees. As far as a homeowner who exists and is having an issue with trees, that's a
They are in
different
two.
situation.
two
There
sections.
There
If
are
I
two
can make
sections.
some recommendations.
Can I just finish with my suggestion? But there are two different sections, but the same process applies to both. And so we're not differentiating here. We are holding the residents up to a very high standard that contractors have to come to, and this is becoming a difficult process for residents. However, I do agree with Julie, I have no interest in lowering these funds. I don't want to add this section in, David, but thank you for drafting. I do think it should stay at the high amount, but maybe our mitigation asks to be more realistic.
The mitigation and the process is a problem.
So if I could just jump in. So you guys were ahead of the game by having a tree ordinance. As of last year, DEP requires everybody to have a tree ordinance as part of the stormwater rules. However, as Jamie was noting, the mitigation requirements, that is set by town. The number of trees per tree is not something that DEP is putting out there. I can tell you when I first moved to town, at least the first time we ever had an issue with a tree, there was the ability for a homeowner to put in a permit to remove one tree at no cost and no mitigation. And then you just had like 3 years or something that you couldn't remove another. That might be something that you may want to consider to take the onus off the homeowners who may need to remove 1 to 2 trees or something like that. If it's dead, it's a freebie. If it's 1 or 2 within a 3 to 5 year period, it can be a freebie. And then you're not dealing with people, you're not giving a pass to the people who are doing the clear cutting. And then separately, you may also want to go back and see whether it's really, extremely onerous for 5 trees just because 1 tree was older. The other thing I do want to say is I would not recommend lowering the fees because at the time that Julie was looking at the ordinance with Mike Cassidy and with Bennu, the former councilman, they asked Mike, what does it cost DPW to plant one? If we go and source it, which is at a reduced rate, obviously, because you can buy in bulk or whatnot, those were close to the cost plus the administrative overhead of the labor. And as you're hearing from the residents, part of why they can't plant it is because the cost is 2 times as much for them to do so. So it's still a savings on that.
Part of it is the diameter of the tree or saying it has to be fixed.
Well, that's why we're looking at the mitigation table.
Okay, so how do we address this whole thing to come back with a recommendation? What's the best way to do it? Because we're not solving it tonight. We're not solving it tonight.
I'm happy to come back with a
What?
Discuss the one section of major trees. The major trees, the landmark trees, are what the goal was to preserve. Those super old, 200-year-old trees that are keeping our soil intact, that are making, huge shade areas and habitats, all that good wildlife stuff, environmental conservation. Those major trees, the ask is a very high ask on purpose.
Yes, of
It's
course.
onerous on purpose. On the smaller trees, I think we have a lot of wiggle room just to give our residents some relief. On those major trees, the goal of that tree ordinance was to maintain those huge landmark or 50-year-old trees, regardless of the soil.
So full circle, this ordinance is designed correctly. Full circle. We're back, no, we're, no. Ready? Full circle. So we started, this ordinance is to, this is,
Guys, I'm not gonna spend all night on this.
Dan's talking.
so I want to remove trees. We don't want that, right? So we made this ordinance.
I want to remove.
So?
You don't want it.
Great. If you're gonna remove it, here's the fee, here's the mitigation rules. There's gonna be a problem if you're removing these giant trees. We're trying to discourage that. And here's a good ordinance for that. It discourages it. If you're gonna do it, just know this is what it's gonna cost you. And here we are full circle with a decent ordinance.
I disagree, because somebody wanted to put up a fence, and they have to take down trees, and it's their property, and this isn't what they want to do for their family, and they can't do, you're saying, either it's gonna be too onerous, or don't do it, it's not fair, they're people's property, and it's their, pay a lot of property tax, and a lot of money, and we have to make it a little more reasonable. So trust me, not everybody is tearing down trees, but if they want to for good reason, they should be able to without being so onerous.
And plan ahead.
On a cost perspective and a land perspective.
And plan ahead.
Okay, all right, so what's the recommendation?
Well, I mean, if you're going to really be looking at the clear cutting situation and not the 1 to 2 trees, I would recommend looking at putting pass for a certain limited number of trees over a 3 to 5 year period, I can certainly make a recommendation. And then go back and look for, non-home improvement project replacement values here of simplifying. This is a really complicated ordinance.
Yes, I agree.
And it keeps getting more complicated with patchwork fixes. Quite frankly, I would go with a repeal and replace. Even if you're still doing the mitigation, something that is simpler, because you have residents that don't understand what's happening.
All right, so let's make a recommendation, so David and Wendy, make a recommendation offline, come back to the council with, here's what we are, here's what you're suggesting, and then everyone's just gonna be beautiful, right?
When will that be? Because I don't think it's like super urgent. I'm just,
It's gonna be as soon as we can get it done.
but it doesn't have to be the next meeting. As I'm saying, this is separate from, if these people want to do an appeal, this is not, and I just want to say to the mayor. Hey, okay, yeah, because I just want to say to the mayor, and it's just, I feel that as Councilman Roglieri and Councilwoman Corcero under impression that we get lots of these appeals, because we don't. Before this, the last appeal we got was before you came on board, David, was a woman who wanted to cut for solar panels. And there was a hardship.
No, he was here for that.
Oh, yeah, you were here for, yes, yeah. Yeah. But that was after like 6 months of her, working toward it. And we granted it. So the hardship appeal, I think I could count on one hand the amount of times these come. Most residents do understand what the code is, they plan it, and they either can mitigate or they have to forfeit, which funds are tree funds. So again, I don't want it to be like, oh, all the time you have this like revolving door of people who say, the rules are not good.
No, but I personally saw what was being required by a property, and I said, this just does not.
Okay, so that's.
And that's why she would pay for the,
But it's not
to the
listed.
trust.
It's not listed.
All right, guys, we're going in circles now, so one last thing. and then we'll move on.
Can I step in? I'm sorry. Can I just point out what my father?
To James' point, I agree, there are things, but that is why there's that hardship. And we usually, in the couple cases that have come, I think we've granted them.
Yeah.
So in the one that's on the Meister, what happened to that? I thought it was on for tonight, and did we grant a hardship appeal? That's supposed to be before us.
Okay, the process of doing the hardship appeal.
They have to let the neighbors know.
So there is an avenue. I think that we have to simplify both for our DPW staff and for the communication to the residents. I don't think that the residents understand this process. So if we're taking a look at this ordinance, I would like to look in the new DPW director and figure out how much actual resources can go to seeing if the tree is dead, seeing if the tree is okay, all the stuff that our tree foremen have to do. I do think it is onerous on the DPW. We need to figure out a different solution.
I think we're hiring that company too.
Okay, so
Outside
maybe
company, whatever it is.
we'll come back to the council. with some
Include that addition.
Okay.
Yeah, and it won't be this one.
No, we
They're
understand.
almost-
We understand.
okay.
But this isn't working for us in that.
So did they want to make a comment before Omar?
Somebody wanted to.
That was Annalise.
Annalise, you want to say something? No, I guess not. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next item.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I want to clarify a couple things. Your father, who's property owner at the Tenafly, and then he feels like the whole thing was a kind of ordeal. It was explained like a little better in the beginning. If it just fee was a completely, hey, just telling them, hey, fee's gonna be how much. This is how much it's gonna be the cost. Not like it's fine, you're gonna get the money back. Where they was explained to him, granted that he has limited English. The way it was explained to him, he's gonna get the money back as long as I follow the ordinance. But like I said, I follow the ordinance, the trees cost, and then the space, the amount of space, and then plus the, you know, that's kind of not fair for my father way he sees it, because the the newer homes, maybe you could plant one or two trees, whatever. My father bought the house. This house is 70 years old. This ordinance wasn't there when he bought it, and then the house came with the more than 70 trees. Over time, there's a tree. He's still keeping up with the trees every year. He spent thousands of dollars to keep up with all these trees, trim it. Every time there's something issue with it, you have to go through this. So we council members are saying like, this is a, you know, ordeal for some people, not whatever. This is for him. This is an everyday issue. Every year he has an issue with the trees. So I just want to make point that I think the law should have reflected that a house is older than whatever certain amount, or the newer homes. I think there should be a difference between, because the summer house, I see newer built houses, they don't have a trees at all. Our house has like 60 trees, and he have to maintain all those 6 trees. I don't know how long, as long as he lives in a Tenafly. So thank you for hearing us out.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and you and David Fanslaw, the borough administrator, need to follow up together to move this process forward.
Yeah, I will email you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is this recommendation, this ordinance amendment recommendation from the planning board regarding mixed-use buildings.
I want to talk about that.
But, yeah, let me just finish explaining it first, then we'll do that. On the bottom of page 1.
Okay, for Julie, because I know she wanted to hear this conversation.
Oh, okay.
She asked me that today.
What? Does anyone here like to make any public comments, since there's a lot of people, audience members wishing to speak? We'll have a 3-minute time limit to address the governing body. Items on or off the agenda, large groups are asked to have a spokesperson represent. Anyone in the chambers want to make a public comment? Omar, is there anyone here?
Still hands there?
How about anyone online that would like to make a public comment? Would you like to do that? Anyone? Just start speaking or raise your hand. Omar, is there anyone who looks like they want to speak?
No hands, Mayor.
All right, we're going to close public comment time.
So on the administrator's report, obviously we talked about the tree ordinance. The Grove Street Park basically is complete with the contractor's part of it. We are putting some additional pieces to that in place, hopefully before Memorial Day. Municipal field beautification, that work is complete. That contract is being closed out. The Little League field bid is out for a rebid. The Tenafly municipal swimming pool, a lot is going on. We have just a little over 2 weeks to get everything else done. I'm optimistic that we're going to be in decent shape. It's a riding herd on contractors every day to get that done. We do have our auditor here tonight when we get to the portion of the meeting with the budget. The Roosevelt Common Tennis Court construction, I can talk about that for a second. So we have the east bank of tennis courts, which are 4, and then the west bank, which are 3. We're going to split this because of an environmental issue that we're going to need a permit for, because of it being a reparative buffer zone with a set of 3 tennis courts. So the engineer is working on doing specifications for the set of 4 that we can hopefully award in June, and that will be constructed late summer, early fall. The set of 3 will require an IP permit from DEP, which will take a few months to get. I anticipate that we can get that over the winter and have that constructed next spring. On that same note, I had a conversation with the school board president and the business administrator, looking to see furtherance of a conversation on sharing the cost of our tennis courts and adding tennis courts.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, there's no place to add at Roosevelt Commons as they're currently laid out. One suggestion was that we take the set of 3 tennis courts and turn it perpendicular, and then add 2 courts essentially the school property to that seventh grade. And as it was explained to me, they need a set of 5 tennis courts in order to have regulation, competition, and I guess one referee does 5 courts, which is why the school was going to build 5 tennis courts of their own, not far from this. So there may be some cost benefit, cost reduction overall in the community if we were able to add those 2 courts. So I can superimpose that on a map, and bring it back to the council to show what that would look like.
Yeah.
And then we could have the engineers talk about what that would be permit-wise if we were to do it. But before getting into that, just I guess, Mayor, there's a general consensus of exploring that.
I'd like to ask you a question. Yes, first of all, if there was a joint use meeting.
No, it wasn't a joint use.
But again, if the Board of Ed president was there, not just for BABA, you should have had a council president. That's one.
I think David talking to the superintendent.
Again, should have had a council rep there, with 2 joint use people here. The second, the idea of sharing the tennis courts with the high school, when we went back to look at scheduling, was not successful on our end. We essentially helped them pay for courts we would not get court time for, because the schools required only the schools to use them during all of the tennis seasons in spring and fall, boys and girls tennis, until the late evening hour, until all their tournaments were done. So they were essentially asking for funding without allowing us the opportunity to utilize freely for all of our residents. So when we left the last joint use meeting, there wasn't an overwhelming support for this idea. So again, unless the scheduling in our rec department can schedule on these courts, it didn't make financial sense for us to be investing on the school property.
The community would have it up until, at least have it all, the whole entire
They
day.
start in August,
Or
after the weather.
No, I mean, again, we appreciate like, the first thing didn't work. They didn't want, even during the day, the kids who were in the school, they didn't want us playing. So that's why it didn't work, but, you know, David's been trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I think it's
But we need the first one to
So, I mean, we don't, it's not gonna cost us a lot of engineering money to do what I'm talking about. So superimpose, not to get into legal documents, but to bring it back to the council.
As long as we don't use it, our residents can use it during the day, we're totally.
So, and I don't think it would take much time for the engineer to sort of do that, superimpose, so then to Lauren's point, what would be in order there is then request the joint use committee meeting to go over this specifically for the tennis courts in the next.
So do you want to do the drawing first, and then we'll do the discussion first?
I think you have the consensus for the drawing.
Yeah, I think we do a drawing.
I say go bigger. David, don't let, and also get creative. I mean, we just did the pickleball courts there. Get creative. It's a lot of space. Go bigger. Don't just think tennis courts. See if you can expand.
Okay.
Again, so just to say, so the Board of Ed wouldn't be putting any money towards this engineering idea, just
No,
our
well,
intent.
this just superimposing over top of a Google map, no. That's,
Well, if it didn't cost anything, sure, but does, what does that cost?
it would be nominal, excuse me, I can give you the exact dollar amount, but that superimposing is probably not even 10 minutes of time.
As long as that's what it
I
is.
mean, I can take the dimensions and do it myself. It's a whole thing, but yeah, that's not going to.
Again, as long as.
Get the crayons.
It's gonna cost us.
And then I think the details from the school, you know, the devil's gonna be in the details. We
Uh-huh.
have to work all that through with the joint use committee. The superintendent, in a separate conversation I had with him, had indicated, you know, the school would be potentially agreeable to paying half the capital cost. So how that works out and scheduling and all that would have to be considered. I think the outcome of this is that we don't want whatever conversations with the school to take off of our target doing tennis courts.
The tennis, right.
This
that's
year,
project
and,
here.
you know, if the discussions don't progress and move away, we're still going to move forward with
With the three.
piece, so we can get out floor first, the three.
So can I ask a different question? I know we had discussed this on the tennis project about possibly shifting for the coursework. And is that not possible because of the environmental issues?
Yeah,
and the-
that's
You
your.
have environmental on that side, and you've got River Park on the other side of the parking lot.
But,
What do you mean?
I don't know.
And you can't pull close to the river edge, you can also be repairing.
Right,
Right, in the way. Right, so, okay.
it's Boston.
And there was nowhere else we wanted to look at to move Freeport House, right? We want a central.
Yeah, there's nowhere else we don't talk about it.
I agree, I'm just
Question
asking
for
questions.
David.
Yeah, we're talking through it. Okay. Next item on the agenda
Can we go
is
backwards?
His,
ordinance recommendation from the planning board.
that's a question about his report? I just had a question about his report.
Go.
Yeah? Can I?
You want to finish your report first? Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, are you still on the report to talk about the next?
Yeah,
meeting? Oh, then go ahead. I'll
Yeah,
ask
no,
if
no,
Andrew.
well, what I'm saying,
No worries.
I'm pretty much done unless they have questions.
Yes, administrative report's done.
Okay, so, just a quick question for you, for the Nature Center was applying for a grant for a pollinator garden over at, across from Sunnyside Park, which is the area, it's like there's some borough-owned property, that by the compost bin, there's a spot that's good for a pollinator garden, and they needed to know if this was considered preserved space so that they could use that site for the project to put in the grant. Do you by any chance know if that's what we call preserved space, and it's borough-owned land?
I don't know off the top of my head, one I can see is in our Graders inventory.
It is.
It is in the inventory, I've seen it.
So, it's in the.
That's
master
so
plan. No, it's.
So they needed to be preserved space to apply for this grant.
Send me the block one, we can confirm that, we can get it.
Okay.
So maybe
It's in the open space
it's in the
plan.
Graders inventory.
Okay, so that's an offline topic.
It is.
If it's on our inventory, then
It
yes.
is, I know that.
Then yes.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask you a different question? The buildings and all vacant property reports, how is that? It's in your.
It's
No, I
in your-
know there's a list, but are we still collecting fees? Sorry. Are we still enforcing vacancies?
There's a list of them. Usually when Rob puts his list together, he'll indicate whether it qualifies for a fee or not, so he's moving along.
Yeah, I'll get him to put that on here. in this next report.
Yeah.
He normally does list
Which is nice.
Okay,
We
all
already
right.
did public ones. Do we know how many new businesses?
Yeah, I don't.
I just like to add that to.
Right.
Yeah, and that's something that I was asked for previously, so I'll get this to be much more.
A little more detail, right? Okay, so this item, ordinance recommendation from the planning board, bottom of page 2, kind of summarizes it. What's happening is, I'll give you the instance of the last line here, which says, mixed-use buildings, including but not limited to residential housing combined with non-residential space, as opposed to previously, in general, it was retail space. Because what's happened, like Benjamin Brothers Development, a couple of spots, the building owners, the developers have put, 500 square feet, 700 square feet, because the code requires them to have commercial space there. Okay, and they can't really, they want to be able to use it for amenity space as opposed to commercial space, which is just going to be left open because realistically, no one's going to rent it. And there's no requirements in our code whatsoever for the size of what retail space should be, because in the old days, 50 years ago, when you built the building, the whole first floor was retail space. And they're not building retail space anymore.
So we're changing it such that it makes it easier for
Makes
them.
it easier for them to use it for like an amenity, the gym, whatever it might be, the pool, whatever they might put in their building, as opposed to using it, making it retail, putting a novel space in it, and just have it sit down.
So there was a longer conversation with the planning board on this, and I I had a lot of issues removing our definition of mixed use. So the goal of our SRB zone, which is where we're considering changing this definition.
Yeah, this is in one zone.
Yes, it's the zone near Benjamin Brothers, which happens to have a lot of commercial and residential. And the zone is to make, I would say, a more robust area where shoppers can go and people can live, obviously. What's happening is that the Benjamin Brothers is what, 200 apartments?
No, it's 100.
110, sorry, very large thing coming in, and they're gonna put in like this tiny little corner one store and say, oh, we're mixed use. And so the conversation at the planning board table was, is that our intention? Are we going to force this developer to put in this tiny mixed use? My take on it was, I think we're going in the wrong direction. I think we should say, we want commercial space in a square foot in relation to the residential square foot space, and have a more balanced use of the mixed use definition, so that if you have 100 apartments, maybe you're required to have the 5 stores of commercial, and not 0 stores of commercial. The way the definition is changing, sorry, Mayor, I know Mayor and I don't see eye to eye.
It's changing, the world's changing.
I understand that, but the definition is very vague. If they put it in a code room, they can say that's an amenity, and now we have nothing, everything else can be apartments. It does also increase the density of the building. So it is increasing the density, the people, the traffic, all of that stuff. However, my question for the council is, as we plan our city, as we plan our development, do we want mixed use to really be a mixed use where we require commercial space and more commercial area?
No, I agree.
Or do we
I think
want to
this is going the
change
wrong
it?
direction.
Yes, okay, Adam.
Yeah.
Why can't you get, you think Starbucks is not being successful? Do you think Jamba Juice is not being successful?
Sure, but Starbucks is going to be a standalone 2,300 square foot building.
It'll put our.
Where?
On an acre of land.
We have no land.
Right, so the question becomes then, if we don't want to do this, that's fine, then we'll just continue what's happening. They're going to put in 500 square feet.
No, I think we should do the opposite.
Right, so-
Make it in proportion.
No, I understand what they're saying, if you can't get, just putting a store doesn't mean Jamba Juice is gonna go. Jamba Juice doesn't want to be there, so there's no point.
No, he's saying it's not.
We have.
Not if it doesn't have space.
So, I mean, you're in the real estate business, so you tell me if I'm wrong or not, but when I, Brown's Park, or I say Bergen Town Center, they're tearing down retail stores and building apartment complexes. They're not tearing down apartment complexes and putting in retail stores.
But there's a balance there.
It's also that's a bad comparison. You're talking retail versus a service that a local will need.
Let's go the opposite way. Go to New Milford, on your way to Sanzari's, about 4 years ago.
That on the left?
Yeah.
There's a terrible location on the
Okay, so you can't discount all the examples and say none of it's true.
That's a mean.
But what you're saying is, you know what? I just give up completely.
No.
Not only do I not want to do anything, I want to actually help them
Not do it.
ensure there is no retail ever in Tenafly, New Jersey.
So that's not what I'm saying.
That's what this report's saying.
Right, so what I'm saying is that in this one zone, right, we're recognizing, do you want, the bigger question is, do you want another downtown competing with the downtown we have now? And maybe you do.
Like, Dan had an idea.
Maybe you do.
Dan had a beautiful idea years ago about restaurant roll. And we can
Back and forth.
I agree.
You know, Dan wanted to do restaurant.
Why is it
roll.
competition
Why
if
aren't we
if the need rises?
And I know it's hard to fill these spaces. I am not unrealistic about that.
Service,
Like,
the biggest industry is the service industry right now.
We don't own that land. I mean, we don't own that land. Retailers have to want to come, restaurants have to want to come. But I will say, we can't get like a big box store. Everyone wants, oh, Trader Joe's or Target, whatever this is. We can't get a big, fancy supermarket. We can get a, Cinderella. Right, it's a Cinderella because they have this mixed use space. They have this big store. Where Benjamin Brothers exists now is space for big stores.
Yeah.
The bottom of the Benjamin Brothers building could be an entire use.
Or even just a restaurant that's great for the 110 residents. And oh my goodness.
I walked
right down.
Other 5,000.
We'll let this one slide then.
Can I just make one note?
You've built in people.
within this recommendation, you'll note that in the table section, in section 2, on accessory uses, it also adds for signage, the reference to chapter 35, we have a call into the ordinance to incorporate the signs in 2 different places.
Thank you for noticing that.
That I really do recommend, regardless of what you think of anything else, that needs to move forward, so that you have the reference to your sign.
Chapter 35.
Yes, I'm with Wendy on that, so that moves forward, we fixed our signage requirements for the building.
You need to add the reference.
So what's the unintended consequences? Actually, I'm glad this was brought forward. The flip side of it, which is, obviously you're not going to use my language, but mixed use is by definition 10% of a minimum of 10% of the space has to be for whatever the lower end is.
So that's not, we don't have that, that's not in our code, I believe.
I'm saying, since this was brought
Right.
to us as, let's get rid of it, I'm saying, let's go back to the planning board, whoever, and have them define it with the minimum being 10% of whatever the minority,
It seems like smart planning.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a nail salon or.
How about non-residential?
And it could actually.
No, nail salon.
It could be an amenity, it could be an amenity.
And it's open to all.
Open to all, exactly. You wanna put a pool there that everyone gets to go to, well, you know, but don't compete against our new municipal pool.
It's right there,
Let's
right
say a spa or something.
So who does that? Do we send us back to the planning board?
Has to go back to the planning board.
So I would say that you could ask Omar to send back comments to the planning board secretary to let her know what the council.
Hey, Omar, can you resend back the?
Omar, you're welcome.
Yes, we could.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Good luck, Omar.
The planning board did have hesitations that we will have empty stores, and I fully hope
Yeah,
it will
that's
not
it.
be
That's
the
the downside,
ongoing
right?
case. The ongoing case that we can actually build our community
You know,
where people want to come.
I believe whatever will happen.
Right, 5 minutes ago, we had a whole conversation of where are we with the vacant stores that we're charging fees to for being vacant.
And as Jamie said, we're.
And they're having it, so
That's good.
well.
Because we don't want our salon, our salon, so that is the problem.
We make the argument frequently that we need to put housing downtown in order to support businesses.
What?
We make the argument frequently that you need to put housing downtown in
Yeah.
order to support businesses. Therefore, businesses in the first floor of 110 unit place should survive.
I agree.
This is ridiculous.
Dry
Push it back,
cleaning,
Move on.
convenience store.
Move on.
Move on.
I have something to add.
Can we move to the
All right,
cars?
let's move on.
John's been,
All right, let's go on to the public hearing. All right, guys, we're going with,
We want to talk.
We want to let Susan know.
2025 local municipal budget. It's resolution 25-287. Can I get a motion, please, Dan?
1 sec, I got signed out.
Imagine that.
No, I completely got signed
Much
out.
more efficient.
Okay, one sentence.
Give me 1 sec. Where am I?
Here, good line.
I was gonna say, yeah, I couldn't create that.
I move to pass and adopt on second and final reading ordinance 2515 and that notice of same.
oh, 25,
Oh, you
We're on a
said-
resolution. Around the pool.
Oh, I cheated.
Sorry, I screwed you up.
Okay, you have
That
it?
was me.
Julie, you have it?
I move to adopt
Here we go.
R 25-287. Read budget by title only.
Yeah. Got a second?
Second.
Second.
Omar, please call the roll.
Councilmember Corsair,
Yeah.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes, and as always, thank
I
you.
got it. I'm up.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park,
Yes.
Councilmember Robert.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor for any public comments on the adoption of the 2025 local municipal budget. anyone in the chambers who would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak? Omar, is there anyone in the chambers who are on Zoom that you're seeing would like to speak?
See no hands, Mayor.
I'm going to close public comment. Now, resolution 25-288, adopt the 2025 local municipal budget. Councilwoman Dayton, would you like to make a motion?
I move to adopt R 25-288, which is adopt 2025 local municipal budget.
Can I have a second, please? Omar, please call the roll.
Councilmember Corsair?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Why'd you sing that? Yeah, why'd you sing that?
Next on the list.
I'm trying to keep her awake.
25-15, municipal pool utility. Can you read the confirmation of publication of the ordinance?
Dan's ready for this one.
Ordinance number 25-15 is an ordinance published in the Sunday, April 27th edition of the record. It's an ordinance entitled Establishment of Municipal Pool Utility of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly, 2004.
I'd like to open the floor for public comment on ordinance 25-15, please. Is there anyone in the chambers who would like to discuss this? Make public comments? Is there anyone online who would like to make comments? Omar, do you see any hands raised, either online or in the chambers?
See no hands, Mayor.
All right, we're going to close public comment. Councilman Roglieri, would you like to make a motion, please?
I was gonna be Dan.
Who?
I was gonna be
Dan, would
Dan.
you like to make a motion, please?
I move to pass and adopt on second and final reading ordinance 2515, and that notice of same shall be published according to law.
Could I have a second, please? Omar, please call the roll.
Councilmember Corsair?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Okay, next is, 25. Okay. So just reading it out, right? Okay, can I get a motion to approve R 25-289 to establish the 2025 membership fees associated with the Tenafly Municipal Pool? Can I get a second?
Second.
Councilman Roglieri, would you like to make a motion, please?
For this ordinance?
Oh, sorry. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Corsair?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton? Councilmember Dayton?
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Okay, introduction of ordinance 25-16, amend garbage collection. Councilwoman Dayton, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I move to adopt, I move to introduce on first reading ordinance 25-16 and set the hearing for May 20th, 2025 at 7:30 or sooner after.
Could I have a second, please? Okay, Omar, please read the title of the ordinance and conduct a roll call.
Ordinance number 25-16, an ordinance of the Borough of Tenafly, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 19 Solid Waste Management of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly, 2004, to revise the regulation of residential trash and recycling collection. Councilmember Corsair?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Leary?
Okay, ordinance 25-17, dust containment.
Julie?
Julie, would you like to make a motion to introduce?
You teased me for talking about dust.
Julie goes.
Oh, no.
Oh, I closed it. I closed it.
It's killing me. Okay. I move to introduce on first reading ordinance 27-25-17 and set the hearing for May 20th, 2025.
At 7:30.
At 7:30 or as soon thereafter. There's just a little
Yeah,
typo
can I have a
there.
second, please? Omar, please read the title of the ordinance and conduct a roll call.
Ordinance number 25-17, an ordinance of the Borough of Tenafly, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 10, Building and Housing of The revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly 2004 to establish Chapter 10, Section 13, containment of dust and plastics at construction sites. Councilmember Corsair.
Yes.
Councilmember Dayan.
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels.
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Councilmember Rolette.
Say, want to get the dust?
Yes.
I want the dust all over.
Almost there.
It's all introduction.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve resolution R 25-290 through R 25-312?
Resolution 25-306, the contract awarded to the editing and concession. This was supposed to also be for the same person was supposed to do the pool and the snack shack.
That's correct.
And it doesn't say anything about that, it just.
Yeah, they did not, I don't believe that they submitted. We didn't receive any bids for the building.
Oh, okay.
We received two for the.
So what, I mean, can we say to them that we want them to do the Little League also? I mean, like, what do you do? Like, if a concession stand, that's
We would
not.
probably have to put it back out.
Yeah, you need these two.
You can't force it,
He's a
that's
nice
it.
guy, he actually did a little league, open day for us. But I guess he just didn't want to.
We could probably put something out and have it closed and done for.
I mean, I wanted to go forward for the pool, but I think we need to move forward, but I just want to.
It was just too inconsistent.
Right, the pool's a set schedule.
Okay.
I had, sorry, before they announced, I have another one I wanted to pull, and that was the goal or just a question to, well, I don't know yet. I guess I'll start with questions. It was the hiring, the promotion, R 25-303.
The executive assistant,
Yes.
what's the question?
My question is, did
I
we
have an idea
determine this
about that.
during budget? Because I went back to my notes and didn't have it, I did miss some of the budget warning for DPW. Was this during the budget?
Yes, it was.
It's in the budget, okay.
That's my question.
I did answer it.
Okay, that's fine.
I didn't see it again. I figured we'd ask it here.
Of course, everyone gets at least one, everyone gets at least one, but
25-307 includes two quotations for the acquisition of an automobile. We are approving this on a blanket basis or approving one through acquisition quote.
Just the one acquisition.
But there are two quotes.
Yes,
What are we
you're
approving?
required.
You're approving the purchase from the Honda of Tenafly, they are the lower bid. They're the lower quote.
I go with the lower. I would go with lower as well.
I always say, why is
We
that
have-
nothing?
we have
You said more.
satisfied-
And why buy local? when you get four?
okay, all right. Where did the auditor go? Okay, could I get a motion to approve resolution R 25-290 through R 25-312? Could I have a second?
Second.
Omar, please call the roll.
Councilmember Corsair.
Yeah.
Councilmember Dayton.
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels.
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Councilmember Rolette.
Yes.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve the minutes of April 22nd, 2025, mayor and council?
So moved.
Second.
All right, can I get a, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm going to recommend we do the committee board reports at the May 20th meeting.
Agreed.
We're at the same time, we'll do the mayor's reports at the May 20th meeting.
Mayor, but everyone should come to Lax Day, that's Saturday. Lax Day starts at 12.
Mayor, I'm not sure if you got a chance to mention in last week's mayor's message, though, the statistics out of the trash-a-thon, and I just wanted.
I did, it was in the written version and the email version.
Oh, okay, because I didn't hear it on, okay, I was listening to
You want me to try to put it in the?
Yeah, I think it'd be exciting for people to hear. It was so well.
Thank you to Jenny Jackson for.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's like some,
Participating.
yeah, really.
Hundreds of people every year, every
Amazing
session
job.
gets better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
It's
it's-
With my little name,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
And the trash-a-thon was very impressive.
Nature
And you
Center.
can please just also say, for the, yes, yellow flowers for it.
Beautiful, that was wonderful.
Not done?
I also just want to remind everyone, thank you for the support of the Nature Center tonight. Please join us at the Spring House
I'll be
on
there.
May 17th. Come
I'll be
with
there.
friends,
May
cocktails, with food,
17.
hopefully a beautiful
Sunday?
I
night.
bought my tickets.
They always have these sign off.
They do, and this is a way to fundraise that's not asking the borough for money. Please come on out.
Mr. Mayor,
All right.
what else we got?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.